Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of The Breakfast Club here on the Breakfast Club channel. Goth is still somewhere in the middle of the United States, and therefore we're just free range TBCers tonight. That's right. Woo! So we have, I guess, a little list of things, but I guess, are you guys just ready to jump into it? Please, everybody, hit the like and subscribe button. That's the obligatory thing to say.
Yeah, as I sent you those links, last week we talked briefly about the CPAC, the stage, and the shape of the stage, and people had said that this was a white supremacist symbol, and I think at the time we were thinking, at least the impression I got, that people were suggesting that it looked kind of like a swastika, and we kind of dismissed that. But doing some more research, turned out that what that stage was shaped like is something called the Odal rune or Othel rune, depending on how you pronounce it. And it's an old Futhark character. Its origin or meaning is supposed to be heritage, and it was adopted about 4 or 5 years ago by neo-Nazis as a replacement for the swastika, because the swastika obviously has a negative connotation. So they dropped that so that people don't automatically see a swastika and get turned off. Now, one document, I'll try to see if I can post the link in the chat on YouTube. But apparently, it's a PowerPoint presentation that I got from a .mil address, which is U.S. military. And it's on a list of banned symbols for tattoos and for displays and for signs and things like that within the military, because the U.S. military recognizes this as a white supremacist symbol. So the idea that we were, so the idea that people were stretching or just looking for something. No, this is a known white supremacist symbol. The U.S. military knew about this several years ago, and neo-Nazis adopted this symbol several years ago as an alternative to the swastika. So they literally had a white supremacist symbol as the shape of their stage.
There's photographs of Nazi uniforms. On the collar, there's different insignia on the collar, and that symbol is on one of the patches.
Now, that one I wasn't too sure about, because the picture I saw looked like it was photoshopped, because the SS, some people said it was the SS logo, but the SS logo was actually two S's that look like lightning bolts. But still, regardless of whether the Nazis used it in the 40s or not, in the 30s, modern neo-Nazis definitely used it as a symbol, as an alternate symbol to
this. This is like the sewn-on patch-looking one, right?
Right.
Yeah. I find that interesting about the military banning this symbol, because I know that now, unlike, probably when the military banned this initially, that people can have, the Wiccan or pagan pentagram put onto their tombstones, et cetera, and I wonder, for people that are members practicing, asatru or asatru, however, I don't know what there's different pronunciations based on where you're from. So, but I say asatru, I guess is how I normally read that, which is the Norse pagan practice.
Right.
And I wonder, for people that are practicing that, are they banned from using that symbol? Because that's basically a part of that entire pagan practice, is all of the runic and Nordic symbols and whatnot. And I wonder,
it's difficult. It's the same thing. I mean, we know that the swastika is like originally an Indian, Hindu symbol, and it's so it does create a problem. But it just shows how fucked up people fuck good things up for everybody else.
I mean, I wonder if you can demonstrate, like, if a person can demonstrate that this is their practicing religion, I mean, hypothetically, I guess you could say that some satanic groups have swiped the cross and turned it upside down. Does that mean that Christians can't use a cross anymore because it could be misinterpreted? I don't know. I don't like that military banning things. I don't like the fact that the Nazis seem to have been able to successfully swiped things, I guess, just kind of hijacked symbols and whatnot, and then everybody runs with that ball and seems to just forget that, like, part of a successful hijacking is that you acknowledge that it belongs to them and not to who it actually belongs to, right?
Well, the problem is it's impossible to avoid the association, whether one wants to be associated or not. I mean, basically, yeah, it sucks that Nazis ruined a bunch of symbols, but I guess it's incumbent upon people to understand what that if they continue to use it, even though they don't have bad intent, that they're going to be the danger of being interpreted differently is very high, and with good reason. So now the other thing to remember too is that soldiers in the military do not have free speech. Mike can speak to it more, and so can Rob. But basically, the Uniform Code of Military Justice does actually spell out there are certain things that soldiers are not allowed to do or say. So they, at least while they're enlisted and in the reserves, even, I think, they cannot do and say certain things. And the thing is that they don't want the military to ever give the appearance like, hey, we're the Nazi army.
I think what's strange about that is if you look at what the Odal rune means, it means homeland. And well, we had a president that started a new branch of government called the Homeland Security. And you could also see, if you were to directly translate KGB from Russian to American, you'd see that that was their Homeland Security. And so when you look at what it means and who's using it, yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
So there was as far as like using like Nordic symbols and stuff, there was a lot of Nazis from Nazi Germany actually, were big time into the Nordic people, Vikings and all of that. And many of them believed that the Aryans, the Aryan race, were from the Nordic people, and the Nordics were from aliens. They were descended from aliens. So.
Well, the other thing too, I mean, another reason why.
What? Well,
yes.
What? Hold on. Where did the Aesir become descended from aliens? The Aesir being all of the Nordic, like the pantheon of Nordic gods.
I think that's where they think a lot of the Nordic features came from.
Yeah, the Nazis believed a lot of occult stuff.
Oh, the Nazis believe that. I thought you were saying the Nordic people believe that they were descended from aliens.
The Nazis say they believe that they were descended from the Nordic people, right? The Nordic tribes, and that the tribes were descended from aliens.
Yeah.
So that's why they thought they were superior.
All roads lead to aliens.
So speaking of Aryans, I was just holding my Aryan baby. It's funny, we laugh because he's got light hair and he's got blue eyes, and we don't know where the hell that came from. But I laugh all the time.
Maybe like he's the Antichrist. I don't know.
My little Aryan baby.
But well, and that's the reason why too. The reason why they use the swastika, because the swastika is kind of a Hindu Aryan thing. Iran is where that the name Iran is actually derived from an older word. Ultimately, is related to Aryan. And so that's one of the other beliefs that they had, is that they came from that part of the world, because they think that's where the true Caucasians came from, Caucasus Mountains, right? So that's one of the reasons why they took that symbol, and because it's an occult, from their perspective, an occult symbol. And so they were really dig it. So I mean, to that think about that. So the Republican Party literally used and somebody tried to argue with me about the idea that since it's a pagan symbol, I'm like, so you're arguing with me that the heavily Christian Republican Party used a symbol that to represent paganism, when they're like, they freak out about anything that's not Christian. Like, yeah, I can't accept that.
Okay, last week last week when you guys were talking about it, and everybody was just like, "Yeah, it's kind of a stretch to say that it was a Nazi symbol and blah 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 blah." I was thinking, you guys are so fucking wrong. I mean, look at it, but I didn't want to argue with anybody, so I just kind of shut up. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad this came around again because,
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say that it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. So now basically the Republican Party is literally the neo-Nazi party now. That's what we have.
So when I look at the Capitol riots, there were other things that you could see that would suggest that those people were white supremacists, fans of the Nazis, fans of the genocide that the Nazis did. There was one guy wearing a sweater that said Camp Auschwitz.
Yep.
Those are addictive, by the way. Everything's an addiction.
What are addictive? Sweaters that say Camp Auschwitz?
Thin
No,
Mints.
Thin Mints.
Oh, Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts are addicting. It's true.
So there's the number 18 that keeps on popping up on all of their insignia, like patches on biker stuff. 18 is a reference to the first and eighth letter of the alphabet, which is the initials of Adolf Hitler.
It's like 88 for skinheads,
Right.
meaning Heil Hitler for HH.
Mm-hmm. And you got that one. I saw one that was 1 to 160. It was 168 to 1, and that's a reference to the Oklahoma City bombing.
What does that mean? What's it a ratio of?
168 people, and they only killed him. That's 168 to 1. It's a score. It's a ratio that they're wearing.
Super effed up.
As a fan of domestic terrorism,
Yeah.
they're wearing it as a patch and a T-shirt slogan as they're storming the Capitol.
I have, isn't it possible that the 18 that keeps coming up is more of a reference to the number of actual presidents they believe there have been? Because their belief is that when Trump retakes power, that'll make him the 19th president.
Well, I think it might mean both because it's one of those things they love the double and triple meanings of things.
Well, it predates certain things because the Aryan Nation gang has been using it in prison a lot. So, like forever.
Yeah, that's true.
It makes me so mad to think about just that people exist out there that think that kind of think that death in that way, on that level, is just not serious. It's
well,
I don't know.
Serious, they're just happy about it.
The thing is that I don't think that they are. I don't think that they even know, most of them. I don't think that they even know what the ramifications of experiencing something like that would really be. They think they're happy about it, but I think that if that came to their doorstep and was suddenly, all right, I need a Raiders hat. That's basically what needs to happen right now, because I see what you guys are doing. Why do you have to interrupt my thought? I was just ranting, so you guys go ahead. Let's talk about
I mean, well, no, the thing is that, I mean, well, no, they wouldn't want it to be visited upon them, but they want to kill the people they think are their enemies. So they know that it's horrible. They don't know, they haven't experienced it firsthand, so it's not as horrible to them, but they want to cause harm. I mean, that's why they did it. That's why they thought he was a hero. So, this is the same mentality that like busted down the Capitol doors.
I really want to not hold Republicans to being connected to white supremacy. I want for a Republican Party that could just eschew that, and I'm willing to forgive, just so that they can like stand for something else. I want so much, and then the stage comes out, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Because this is not the rabble out in the Capitol Mall anymore. This is the people who run the fucking party made a conscious decision to put out that that bullhorn of, yes, if you recognize this symbol, you know what this is all about. We're with you.
So a couple of things. First is we got a hat thing going. What'd you do, Michael? Where'd your hat go?
My hair is too beautiful to be covering with a hat.
I understand. I understand.
I mean, I guess that you are a pioneer in defining beauty standards, sir.
So You guys remember I ran for office this past fall.
What?
And yes.
I'm
Anyway,
kidding.
so the current county commissioner board, right? It's four Republicans. For the last 2.5 months, we have been trying to get them to pass a resolution condemning white supremacy. And they have a meeting every 2 weeks, and every 2 weeks it ends up being basically like a shouting match, where they refuse. They won't take a vote on it. They've rewritten it to take out the words white supremacy and racism. Um, they refuse to condemn officially white supremacists. It's a little frightening. It's just like I
On what
this
grounds?
is
Like,
an easy
Yeah, that
yeah
should be
this should be an easy thing.
what is their counter argument for what is it?
makes their
Dogpiling on what's not actually white supremacism and how everything gets likened to white supremacy when it's
No,
really
but-
not that bad.
but
And
see,
so they don't want to contribute to that.
But
Well,
that's
what they're saying is they don't believe that it's right to focus on one kind of hate when there's all other kinds of hate in the world. So when they rewrote the resolution, they stripped out everything about racism and white supremacy, because in the original resolution they actually named white supremacist groups that they condemn these very specific groups that are known by the United States government to be white supremacist groups. Well, they stripped all that out and they put in things about September 11th. They put in things about things that are happening in Libya, in countries overseas. And it's just like this has nothing to do with what the purpose of the resolution is, but they just kind of just keep dancing around it and watering everything down and avoiding to condemn it. So it's just very odd. So
Definitely.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of like saying that if we want to have a resolution to denounce anti-Semitism, and then saying, oh well, yeah, but there's other bigotries. It's like, well, right, but we're talking about anti-Semitism right now, and we're not saying everything's anti-Semitism, but anti-Semitism does exist. It's on the rise, and it's a problem. So. That should be easy.
So, Mr. Vegas, what would you feel like if someone put you on the spotlight and said, how do you feel about Black lives and whether they matter?
Do you love America? What do you mean?
Well, I'm just trying to get people to say Black Lives Matter, the phrase.
I mean, now that it's kind of gone all the way through its paces, I think most people would probably adhere to saying Black Lives Matter. But I think I think it had a pretty rough start that was kind of mired in a slew of setbacks and issues that made it challenging for people to empathize with and understand. So.
Well, I appreciate the perspective on what most people would say, but I was wondering what you would say.
What I would say?
Yes.
Yeah, I would. Are you asking me, do Black Lives Matter? Black Lives Matter. Is that what you want to hear?
See, that was easy.
That was a lot easier than it's been on TV. It seems like pulling teeth with a lot of people that are
Well,
on TV.
Again, it had a pretty sour.
I definitely
Origin.
agree with that. The sour beginning was a thing. And I actually credit that though to basically the left being the crappiest ever at, memeing, essentially. Right.
No, because basically it started because we were just sick and tired of every time one of us gets killed, whether we were doing something or not. There was always some excuse. There's always never any accountability. No one ever held to even charged to say, hey, we think there might be a problem here, and then being told, then the question was always, well, what happened before? Guy shot in the back. Well, what was he doing? Shot in the back. It doesn't matter. And so basically, as I've always told people, it's like, well, if you say all lives matter, fucking act like it, because you didn't act like our lives. And I don't mean you, Vegas, but I mean in general, people didn't act like our lives mattered. So that's what we were saying. Just say the fucking.
What people like?
It,
what people? I mean, So I had pretty humble beginnings, right? I was raised in trailer parks and cheap apartments, and I was born in Akron, Ohio. Look at you. Lived and then I had a raising Arizona style upbringing out in the desert in Laughlin and Las Vegas area. Um, I had a very multicultural upbringing. None of these things like were a problem for me, or I recognized or understood them to be a problem until I was like 30, 35. Like it wasn't a thing, right? So
No, and I understand that, but that's the reason. That's the reason for all the agita from us is that basically it's not like it's brand new. As I mentioned, last time, Richard Pryor was talking about the shit in 1974, 1975, and it wasn't new then.
yeah, I remember that. I remember that skit. Sure, but I do wonder. Is it worse? I feel like it's getting worse, not better. I feel like none of this is.
Well, here's what happened. I mean, it's not that it's getting worse; it's just getting more attention. Because, right, yeah, Rob's got it right there. The very first time we ever saw, well, actually, I'm lying. The first time we saw this stuff was actually on film in the 40s, 50s, and 60s with water cannons and dogs, and most of America said, "Yay." It wasn't the first time that white America actually looked at it and said, that's not so hot, was Rodney King, because it's like, hey, the dude's immobile on the ground getting the shit knocked out of him with clubs, and
everybody was on that issue.
Right, but even there, what happened? Did any of those cops suffer anything? No,
but that was the whole reason for the whole LA riots. That
right,
was like
exactly because basically because that's what everyone was so upset about. It's like, hey, a guy was literally beat to a pulp on camera by cops, and it was clear that whatever he might have been doing before, he certainly wasn't doing it anymore. He was immobile. He was no longer a threat. They were not subduing him. They were exacting revenge upon him. And that's not what cops are supposed to do.
Sorry,
even with an obvious violation of his civil rights, they all walked, all 7 cops. Nothing happened to them. And so people, it touched off riots. But that was the first time that that the film actually had an impact. It didn't get the result we wanted, but it had an impact. And it's just, as time's gone on, now that cameras we're literally all walking around with cameras in our pocket. Now these things, and now a lot of cops have to wear cameras. A lot of stuff comes out in ways that we hadn't seen before. It's not new. And as I've tried to point out to some guys I talked to years ago, they're libertarian guys, and they were like, well, it's not a race problem, it's a police problem. I'm like, well, it's actually both. We have a problem of the police in general being overarmed and too willing to use violence against everybody. And they also have a race problem because they tend to use it more against us.
So when people talk about this stuff, and sorry, I wasn't laughing at you, Joe. I was laughing.
Yeah, I know. Because Mike's being a shit stirrer. I get it.
I picture like a Venn diagram or something. I genuinely think that this is more of a poverty, and cops treat people that don't have the means to fight back differently than people that have the means to fight back. And more blacks fit into the poor category than whites do by proportion. I do genuinely think that this is mostly a class problem. I don't want to ignore that blacks are uniquely or disproportionately suffer worse.
But Vegas. Here's. I mean, some of what you're saying has merit to it. And that's why you see a lot of like poor white people dealing with some of the same things,
Sure.
not to the extent, but it's still, because you see all that all the time. People throw up examples. Well, here's this video of a white kid who was shot in the back of the head in his car by a cop.
Right.
And I mean, I actually remember that one specific case. But there's also way too many black movie stars, television stars, athletes, business owners that are wealthy getting arrested for being inside a store that people didn't think they should be in because they're black.
Yeah,
Right.
it's,
So I mean, there's way too much of that, and it's just like, so if it were just a poverty issue, that wouldn't happen.
Right.
yeah, but it's like, see, like all this emphasis seems to be focused on the unconscious, unknown aspect, like all this soft science stuff, whereas poverty is like a hard thing that you can address. Fiscal obligations, money, these kinds of things are more direct and easier to resolve than the attitudes of people.
Yes.
Because I
Yes.
can't fight. So, like, the thing is, like, you're like, well, people think this about this way or this way. Well, people can think what they want.
Right. But
I mean, that's
yeah,
we live in a country where people can think how they want.
right.
And
But here's the thing though, is that okay? Just say I was a cop, right? And just say I fucking hated white people.
Joe,
Should
you're a cop who hates white people.
Should I be a cop? Should I be allowed to be a cop, knowing that with my biases, I'm likely to treat white suspects unfairly? I would argue no.
it's you can't avoid it because you can't.
You can.
Everybody has those.
No. If you hold people accountable for their actions, again, because not
Sure.
their thoughts, but their actions. If you see evidence that someone is doing their job and they're biased in a negative way like that, then you actually what should be happening, they should be held accountable. So like, and because you're right about the poverty, that absolutely does happen. And as I mentioned, but that's my point, is that there's multiple problems. There's a police problem in general, there's a poverty problem in general, and there's a race problem in general. And when you get the overlap of all these things,
Right.
it gets worse.
That's what I was saying with the Venn diagram.
Yeah.
There's a big intersecting chunk there.
You just landed on intersectionality, my friend.
So
I take it back.
Okay, so I have a question a little bit here. So Joe, your original question was, if I am racist, should I be allowed to then be a cop, right? If I have racist beliefs, should I be allowed to be a cop? And then you kind of went on to say that if I'm doing things in the course of my job that are shown to be biased activities, right? But couldn't you argue that if you're doing the things such that somebody else can identify that you are taking racist actions, then we aren't talking about beliefs that you hold that are inside of your head. Like, there is a line between what I think in my head and the things that I do outwardly, right? So if we want to say that, yes, it's okay for somebody to have whatever beliefs they want to have, that person better be damn careful that those beliefs don't ever spill over into their actions, lest we do have grounds to absolutely fire them, right? But if they don't ever spill over into action in any kind of identifiable way, and you wouldn't ever know that person holds these beliefs personally sacred or whatever it is that they do, what difference does that actually make outwardly until it spills over into into real world, a knowing and actionable thing? Go ahead, Thin Mints.
Okay, can I respond to that, Joe? You all right with that?
Hey, go ahead.
Okay. Personally, I don't give a shit. I don't think anybody else really should give a shit what other people think in their heads, because inside your head is your own little, echo chamber for yourself, and it can be fun sometimes if you yell loud enough at the wall. That's great, whatever. But when you hold a position like a police officer, where you have the power of life and death in your hands, on a daily basis, even. Yeah, you're right. You have to be careful. Those people have to be careful not to let their thoughts lead out into their everyday work. And it may not be initially apparent. What ends up having to happen, and we've seen this with cops that have gotten busted doing things that are wrong, when they look back at their record, it's like, wait a minute, there is a clear pattern here of biased behavior that when you look at one or two instances at a time, you might not see. But you got to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. So things like that, they think whatever they want. If there is no pattern of bias, or there's no incidents that can be pointed to, who gives a shit what they think?
Right. I mean, my point is that it's unlikely that someone will hold strong beliefs like that and have it not affect their behavior. It's I won't say it's impossible, but it's really damn close. But yeah, if someone somehow holds the belief and it doesn't at all affect their actions, but I think that's really a stretch to believe that someone could hold strong biases and not have it affect their approach. Because right off the bat, if I think that guys with beards are degenerates, it's going to be really hard for me to Mike's face. It's going to be really hard for me not to treat them like degenerates. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but it's really, really unlikely.
Well, so how would you suggest dealing with something like that, right? Because obviously you can't, I mean, would you, I sort of agree with the notion that action follows thought to some degree, right? So if you have it like truly ingrained into your thinking, a certain thing, your actions will reflect that, even if subtly, right? And maybe even if you might not even realize it. So how would you suggest, let's say nobody has ever demonstrated outwardly something that's a clearly fireable offense, but those undercurrents are there. How would you suggest them being able to identify those before that person ever becomes hired, so that they can be vetted, essentially?
That's damn near impossible, isn't it? I mean,
Not anymore. Not anymore. I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, now with social media, people post their stuff, and a lot of jobs, that's what they do. They're like, hey, I'm gonna go look this person up. Now, now here's the thing. Now I've got an employee. He's a contractor, so he's not a full-time employee. Well, he does work for me. I heard the guy talk. The guy's fucking racist. He does good work, and he doesn't let it out. Now, I have had to warn him a couple times, though, when, he starts talking politics, like, hey, you need to stop before you say something that's going to get you in trouble. Because this is my space, and there's no free speech here. I am the grand poobah. I am the overlord. And for the same token, now Philip, who works for me, Philip has the same similar politics to mine. We don't talk about that stuff in front of employees either, because I also don't want to create a hostile work environment. I'm not going to sit there and talk about atheism or talk about liberal stuff in front of everybody else, because they can believe whatever they want, and I'm not there to push my beliefs on my employees either. But I think, in a case of somebody, if you're going to hand somebody deadly force in their hand, then you need to do a background check, and that background check needs to be thorough. And even if you still hire somebody, you say, okay, I see some things that are questionable, then you need to at least bring it up, and you let the person know, hey, we saw a few things that we find a little troubling. The rest of your record looks pretty good, but you had better not show any signs that you're going to be biased, because if you do, we're going to have a talk.
Joe, I'm sorry that I have a shit-eating grin on my face right now, but you kind of reminded me of a coworker I had once that would play the Rush Limbaugh show in the electronics calibration lab I was working every day. And I just realized that can't happen anymore.
Nope.
I'm very happy.
Yeah, there's no way in hell. I mean, and again, I wouldn't play Rachel Maddow either.
So the only thing with all this is, if you go looking for something, you're going to find it. And it's often not what it is. But people, you stack up well. He listens to Rush Limbaugh. He checks Y. He checks Z. He therefore must be. There is a tendency to,
In the military,
I think if somebody, I think in today's age, if somebody is a legit out and out racist, they're not going to, you're not going to, like, if somebody's a racist, you're either not going to know about it, or they're not going to be hired anywhere else. There's a reason why being called a racist is a powerful thing, right? It's career destroying. It
isn't, though. That's the whole thing. It's really not.
It's in the military. Don't they give tests to people to do certain things? Like if you want to be a submariner, right? They give you psychological evaluation tests in order to determine whether or not you can be underwater, all that pressure, locked up in a little tube for 6 months at a time with a bunch of dudes. And
they give you those tests so you can keep secrets, more than that. But yeah.
So why can those same types of tests not be applied to police work, where you are giving somebody psychological eval tests part
They have
of?
those. They do that kind of
I mean,
stuff.
I don't know because I've never been a cop or in the military, so enlighten me, dudes.
I mean, I've been through stuff like that. I've had polygraphs. Cops, I think most cops get polygraphs. I don't know. They go through that. So
The unfortunate thing about the IQ tests that I know that cops have had to take in the past is some of them were excluded out of service because they were too intelligent. This was a thing.
when
I will cite my sources in a minute.
Actually, there was a Supreme Court case a few years ago where somebody was drummed out of the police force for being too intelligent, and they sued. And it was the Supreme Court determined that no, it wasn't against the Constitution to kick somebody out because they're too smart.
in any case, another extreme edge case, right? I mean, this is obviously
Here
not
it
very
is,
common.
September 8th, 2000. Court okays barring high IQs for cops.
He got it before I got it. But it is a thing that they're looking for people who will follow orders and not think too much about what they're doing.
Yeah,
What, 2008?
Yeah, but I could see an argument for that, even if it's not on the negative side, right? Because there can totally be an argument that if your IQ is literally too high, like you're over 200 or some crap like that, you may not actually be good in that kind of police work, because in situations where you must make very snap, rapid, quick decisions, you might have trouble doing that because you think about everything over. You overthink that.
No, that's not what IQ means. That
well, I didn't say.
Unmute himself.
I'm trying to relate people with really high IQ to having certain types of personality traits. I'm not saying.
But I wouldn't do that because I don't think there's anything that actually ties the two together.
But there are with stupid people. Like what? I mean, if there's kind of an umbrella.
A lot of stupid people are very successful.
Look at Trump.
It doesn't. They correlate less, I think, than people think they do. But
the thing is that, I mean, I know it's a stereotype of like, oh, the smart guy who's lost in their thoughts and everything. I find that people that tend to be very intelligent also tend to be very quick thinkers. The fact that other people may not understand some of the side thoughts that they're having or why they're relevant, that's their problem, not the intelligent person's problem.
Too smart to be a good cop.
Yeah.
Too smart to be a cop. Wow.
Yeah. So it was a thing.
Yeah.
I know that of the studies that I've seen, they've likened the psychological profile of police officers to being most similar to prisoners. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the similar jargon that they're both using, and the mentality of one rubbing off on the other, maybe. But it is interesting.
Well, also, I mean, people who are intelligent tend to be better at critical thinking. They're less likely to just follow blindly, and they're more likely to, if they hear a rule that sounds a little off, to try to, examine it and see, does that make sense or not, and question the authority. And they don't want that. They want basically ones that will do whatever they're told to do.
If you've got a blue wall of silence, a thin blue line that you're trying to maintain, you don't want the hyper intelligent person on your team.
Right. And as we know, those cops who do turn in the bad cops, so the good guys that they're supposed to be the majority, supposedly, very, very often they get reprimanded, they get harassed, they get threatened, they get fired. So the good cops who are actually out there trying to protect us from the bad cops, they're the ones that get sanctioned most of the time.
Who is that? Who is the black cop in California that went ape, like after he got wrongly, he was trying to report some of the bad cops on the crew. Was it like somewhere in inland California?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he went on a rampage, and he had a whole manifesto. And if you look into it, like if you read his manifesto and you go through that whole event, what I walked away with from that was this dude had no options. It was just
Robert
cave. Was it Robert Stewart? That's an interesting case right there. That dude got fucked.
Yeah.
But he obviously shouldn't went on a rampage. But still, that's the only way. The only reason you know his name today is because he did that. So.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, yeah, so he was a guy who had been a good cop, and yeah, he was basically kind of pushed to an extreme. You know, and that's really sad. I mean, and that's another reason why, in general, we need to do a better job of vetting the people that we give that authority to, not just for racism, but and bias, but also, you know, this attitude, this thin blue, and I get that, you know, obviously, you know, you're watching, everyone's watching each other's back and all that kind of thing, but you know, the cop who turns in the bad cop is protecting the other good cops. But they don't see it, and they don't see it that way. And the ones that don't see it that way, to me, those are the bad cops.
So you got a lot of like you have corruption top to bottom. You have a massive cultural issue within the police department. The police departments across the nation. The manner in which even campaign contributions work to like get mayor elected, to get these appointments and all this kind of thing. I don't think people realize like how prevalent it's top to bottom in these places. It's pretty bad. So there is at least some recognition that like a voted for sheriff is at least a little bit, it's not always going to work out, but at least a little bit less corrupt ideally than some of the metropolitan police departments and inner city police departments. But
see, I'm not convinced voting actually helps. In fact, I think the opposite. Like here in New Jersey, like this, like for judges are not elected. So as a result, we don't have like the hanging judge. To my knowledge, I've never seen any cases where you've seen around the country where they're elected, where they're actually selling prisoners to the local, you know.
None of your judges are elected?
None of them. No.
So that's interesting.
So as a result, and because they either get, depending on which bench they sit on, they either sit for a 7-year term or a lifetime term. So this way, they're divorced from the politics of it. They're there, and they're going to outlast whoever put them on the bench.
Lifetime terms need to be obliterated for everything.
I disagree.
There should never be a point that somebody can score a lifetime term and thereby circumvent basically a review board, as it were.
But there is a review board. They can be impeached.
Yeah, they can be impeached.
But you know,
and sheriff. On the other hand,
it's cold comfort.
In New Jersey, sheriffs are elected here.
Yeah.
That's Chris Dorner. We messed up his name. We said Robert something. It's Chris Dorner.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to speak in defense of cops a little bit here. I'm gonna play a little devil's advocate because normally I'm like boo hiss, but I feel like cops in jobs like that in particular are in sort of a hard position, right? Because I feel like sometimes what we see is what I think of as the Bill Cosby effect, right? Which is somebody who does, 90% good work and then 10% like something super shitty, like, oh, I don't know, I drug and then, have sex with women against their knowledge, right? But 90% of what I do, like I make this great content. I'm, very good at doing that and doing a lot of good things for people. I do a lot of public works, blah, blah, blah. But then that 10%, right? So the problem, let me finish, because the thing is that it doesn't, that 90% doesn't make that 10% okay, right? Is what I'm trying to say. And this is what I'm saying though with cops, but they're in a different position in that if Bill Cosby gets kicked off the docket, there's like 3 bajillion other comedians that are there to take his spot. Cops are hard to come by. They're not paid millions of dollars to get in front of a stadium. Yeah, if you want a good quality cop, if you just want to put a gun in anyone's hand, sure. There's like
But that's
a
what they're
whole bunch of neat. Well, I think it could get worse. I mean, just imagine if all of QAnon had guns and badges. Yeah, crazy.
Okay, well, let me take your example. Let me take your example though one step further though. Like, hey, I'm a great guy. You know, I give to charity. I kiss my mom, hello and goodbye. You know, I make the bed and every other week. So I throw a bunch of babies on a bonfire and light them up. Does that 10% really just delete all the good stuff? Yes, 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 it does. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I think, obviously you got it's frequency and amplitude, right? So you could do a whole bunch of of really good things, and the amplitude is this much, and then you do something really heinous, and the amplitude is this much, and that wipes out all the rest. I mean, yeah, if you're drugging and raping, at least
Also,
at least 4 dozen people.
Like the one thing that I would have said though, with regards to the drugging and raping too, is that was not a thing that this guy did under a pressured situation either. This was a thing that he did that was pre-calculated, right? A lot of cops are acting and doing the things that they're doing in a high pressure situation, which I would challenge anybody to.
I would challenge that
single time.
I challenge that assertion.
You don't think they operate under high pressure?
And because there is a certain amount of pressure and responsibility with the job, the standards should be higher than a comedian.
Yes.
No, I super agree. I mean,
well, here's the other thing too. These are statistics. It's very easy to look up. On average, on any given year, 50 to 60 cops are killed by perps. 50 to 60. That's it. And another 50 to 60 die to accidental death, heart attack on the job, that kind of thing. Out of about 750,000 cops, it is more dangerous to be a plumber, to be an electrician, and a whole host of other jobs, a firefighter for sure. And we wouldn't put up with any of them behaving that way. We don't put it up that way with people in the military during wartime who are under a much higher level of stress because they're actually in a real war zone where anybody could shoot at them at any time, and we don't accept that behavior from people at war. So why the fuck should we make excuses for people in peacetime, especially like maybe if you're in Camden, maybe if you're in Trenton, maybe if you're in Patterson, we might say, okay, those are kind of rough places. But in most places in America, that's not the case.
I would say that I'm less defending cops and actually more defending city people, because it's the job of the people in our government to make sure that we have a police force. And so I'm less defending cops, and my real concern is more that if we just started mass firing people, there wouldn't actually be a police force, or we would have a severe deficit in a police force.
We could very easily replace them. Easily.
I mean, like, if that's a thing, then I'm super on board with it, right? I actually kind of am on board with it. I'm going to let Vegas talk. Go talk, Vegas. I'm done.
I was siding with Joe about 90% of what you were talking about there, sister, up until the point that stress doesn't have an impact on decision making. I
didn't say it didn't have an impact. I'm saying we overstate it, and that most of the cops are not constantly in danger like we pretend they are. That's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, it also depends on their role and what they're doing. If you're dedicated SWAT or something, I imagine that you're, sure. But to do that kind of thing where you're under that kind of stress all the time, you're going to have to go through some pretty thorough, I guess, analysis, or people are going to make sure you're in the right spot. I would hope. Yeah, you would hope. The one thing though, I've engaged. I don't know that you can check out a cop, or I don't know how we anticipate knowing how somebody's going to respond to certain situations until it's too late. The kind of situations that causes riots and things like that, because like a cop that's engaged in something like that, to your point, Joe, those events don't happen as much as people think they do, and you don't know how they're going to respond to it when they come up or when they occur. Because the thing is, I've seen this kind of thing to where people that you thought would be like the picture perfect leader or somebody that inspires confidence and things like this. And when the shit hits the fan, like, they're not. So people have this fight or flight response, this whole thing where you don't know how they're going to be until it happens. You can't simulate it. And so when they get wrapped up into this stuff, the only way that how you know they're going to behave is how they behave when it happens.
What if we just put a whole bunch of cop wannabes into the Stanford prison experiment, and watched how they behaved with prisoners? And if they're complete douchebags, you immediately pull them and they can't be a cop.
Then you'd lose all of them.
Well, the thing is, part of the problem.
Isn't that what everybody here is advocating?
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of the problem that we do have, though, is that because of the lack of accountability, it has been attracting people who like to who have a desire to actually harm people. I mean, we were talking before about how obviously even white people get shot by the cops too. There was a case, I don't know, 3-4 years ago where somebody was firing from a BB gun from a hotel. Cops went in. Now there's some other guys not related to they were like actually on a different floor, but the cops went to the wrong floor, and so there's there's this white dude, and the cop stops him and he's like yelling at him, giving him a hard time. Now the cop tells him to get on his hands and knees and crawl toward him. Now what ended up happening was the guy's pants started to slide down, and so all he tried to do was pull his pants up, and the cop shot him. Now the thing is, before that happened, though, the cop was very sternly but fairly calmly, and was basically saying, if you fuck around, I'm going to shoot you. So this was a cop prepared, ready, and willing to shoot. He was looking forward to justification. You could hear it in his voice. And I would bet you, if you looked at that guy's record and other, how many complaints were against him and all these other things, like Rob was saying before, not in every case, but in a lot of cases, there is evidence once they're on the job, because they get more complaints, they have more incidents. And the thing is, if you notice that, for instance, like one cop gets involved in more violent altercations than other cops, he's probably instigating it. And that's, so that's the thing. So here's this cop telling this kid, hey, do what I say or I'm going to shoot you. That right off the bat, he's already in the wrong. He's already wrong, regardless of what happens after that. Because it's one thing to be prepared to do it. It's quite another to be looking to do it.
Building on what you're saying, we can't look at cops' records while they're cops. USA Today came out with a huge expose of records of ex-cops that were fired and what they were fired for, and the records that they had while they were on duty that led up to that. And there was like huge rap sheets on cops internally before they got fired. But while a cop is serving, there is no way to see for the public what their record is. Unlike me, a registered professional with my state, everybody with a license to do their job has to be up on a database that anybody can look at, and they can see all the different complaints that I've had.
Right.
Which is 0 right now. But cops, all their complaints are invisible to the public. And I don't know any state where they are visible.
And they're the only ones, I think.
They're the only ones.
So, I mean,
doctors, acupuncturists, barbers,
pharmacists,
doctors. Yeah, you can look up all those, but not a cop.
Another thing that a lot of people say is training, right? They need better training or they need more training. Now, I don't disagree with that. The problem is that doesn't necessarily fix the problem that we're talking about. Again, you don't know how people are going to react, no matter how good their training is. I mean, you guys 3 veterans, Vegas, right? You were in the service, right? Yeah, so you got 3 veterans in here, and I'm pretty sure all of us can say we saw people crack.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a couple of guys didn't even make it out of basic training.
Can I ask a question about that? Like, because you have can I ask a question, or would I be interrupting your thought process?
Well, you're interrupting, but what's your question? You've
Well,
already done it, so.
Well, but I could stop, or I could. So the question is, when we're talking about training, like you're talking about training, how do you think that training in the military, or say the FBI, because you guys are saying that you can't really put people in these situations, but don't other agencies that we have have training that specifically simulates situations in order to determine the things we're talking about.
A simulation is not the same as the real thing. I mean, there's even like live fire simulations for things. I gotta tell you, they took us out. They took us out at like 2 o'clock in the morning. They took us out to like this big giant half pipe, right? And they lined us all up, and then they started firing weapons in the air, and they said go, right? And you run up to the top of the half pipe, and there's tracer rounds coming at you. So as soon as you get up, you got to drop. Then you have to low crawl across this field, and there's explosions, and you look up, you can see it. There's actually rounds going over your head. So if you stand up, if you're tall enough, you could get shot. So I mean, but we know it's a simulation. It isn't like people aren't trying to kill us. They're
Yeah,
trying
all
to
you
make
have
it
to
as
do
real
is
as
not
possible.
stand up.
Right. Exactly. So it's like
So-
we know it's like nobody's trying to kill us. So there's a certain amount of a amount of safety. So and you know that going in. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I will say this because it gives me an opportunity to do a little show and tell. I just got my son one of these. See that?
VR.
Okay.
Oculus?
So he got one. I tried it. I thought this was like a gimmick. I never really did it before. It is not a gimmick. Anyway, on Fort Huachuca down in southern Arizona and some other places, the Army is actually experimenting with using this kind of stuff to more accurately simulate the kind of environment they're going to be in. And I will say this, after using this, like if you just told me that last week, I would have been like, okay, who cares? But like after having tried this, it's pretty damn convincing. Actually, it's kind of jarring when you take it off. So maybe it's the start of something good where they can kind of,
at least flying some of them anyway. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
one thing too, to your point earlier, Vegas, about top down, I completely agree. I've always bring up the case of Marcus Jeter. I don't know if I don't remember if I've done it in this hangout before or not, but basically he was a guy when he was at a party. Cops came looking for somebody else. They told everybody, if you're not this guy, get the fuck out. After and this is in New Jersey now. Cops after guy left. One of the cops decided to follow him and pull him over, and literally ripped him out of the car and beat the hell out of him. And there was another cop car coming the other way and parked. And that's how they know what happened, because the dash cam footage captured it. And this cop basically was slapping his own hand and saying, "Stop going for my gun," while his buddies beat the shit out of the guy. That cop actually went to jail because he was literally starting to set up a shoot. But the crux of the matter was that when they arrested the guy, brought him in, they piled on a bunch of charges that would have been like 18 years in jail. So they said he assaulted an officer, all this kind of stuff that he didn't do, and there was tape to prove it. Now, his superiors all saw that tape. We know that they saw those recordings, and they were okay with him getting charged with an 18-year bid. It wasn't until the guy's lawyer, petitioned for the FOIA, got the tapes and said, and then put him out to the media saying, "Hey, my guy's getting railroaded, and here's the proof." And then all of a sudden, then they did something. So it wasn't just actually 3 bad cops, because all 3 of them were involved. But that means that their sergeant, their watch commander, everybody up the chain, all the way up to the chief, all saw the evidence, all knew that their guys were dirty, all saw that they were trying to kill this fucking guy, and they were trying to pin charges on him, and they were all fine with it. So the fact that only those cops got in trouble is a part of the problem, because it's like everybody in the chain, that because they were accomplices, they were willing to put this guy up for 18 years.
Yeah, I think, I'm right there with you. I think we want to have this romantic idea that these sort of direct lines between money, people getting elected, and appointments don't mean any, aren't as, we don't want to think of them as suspicious, I guess. I don't know why, but we just tend to like, that's a conspiracy theory. You're thinking like this. Can I bring up my conspiracy theory?
Sure.
Like why sometimes I wear the tinfoil hat about this, and I'm always suspicious of these kind of things. So in 2002, I went to Kuwait. I was there way early. I invaded Iraq in March 2003. I was watching the news even up through March as people in this country were watching it. It was Colin Powell giving the brief, the yellow kid, the whole, this is the weapons mass destructions, but the whole thing of it. But what the thing about that is, like, by November before then, it was very apparent to everybody where I was, we were going to war. like to you guys, right? It was up until February, these briefs coming out. Was it there? Do they have it? This is proof that's in the facility, blah, blah, blah. I can tell you that shit was decided well before then. Yeah. Okay. And it kind of set in motion like a whole, I don't know what it is, but I know what it's not. Right. Like in these kind of things, I'm super suspicious about. My dad was a cop, and he would tell me like things I never really thought twice about until I was an adult about those kind of appointments, and like who, like so and so knows who, the nepotism, the relationships between authorities. It's something that in this country we just shrug off, and we're really kind of, I don't know how to go about doing that or how to bring it up when people are debating, or I don't know. But we have a problem with this kind of thing.
I totally agree with you. And I think part of the problem is it's the myth of America that clouds the truth of America. It's basically the idea that, well, we're all equal and we all have the same chances, and we don't. And nepotism is absolutely a big thing. As much as I didn't have a problem with Hillary Clinton and all that, but I do know there were some people who that was their main thing against her. Like they didn't want Bush the second, and they didn't want Hillary because they're like, we don't want dynasties. We don't want people, the thing that you're part of a political family and you're just going to perpetuate and you're going to get these jobs because you're just next. It's your turn, kind of bullshit.
I think Benghazi was a big scapegoat, but there was something to her incompetence in that. She should have responded to it, but it wasn't. I think it was overblown. My big thing with Clinton is she's a hawk. I'm against all hawks. The thing, like Clinton.
What does that mean? I'm sorry, I actually don't really know what that means.
Just this militarism, like the one big belief that Americans have that's just doesn't mimic the rest of the world is that we're the good guys. I'll put it to you like that. It's not how we're viewed in a lot of places. So. As far as Clinton goes, she is a hawk. Right around the time that the Donald Trump's the pussy thing came out, right? Grab her by the pussy. One of the things that was not in the media, and it drove me insane, was Clinton's. She was recorded talking about a setup for the Hezbollah election, right? And it was very clear she was engaged in foreign interference of that election. Understandably so. I get it, right? If you're not a fan of Hezbollah, pretty easy to not be a fan of Hezbollah. But there is a line, that you don't want to cross. And if you do cross it, you certainly don't want to get fucking caught crossing it. You can go listen to the tape. Right? It's like this is the kind of things that we get involved with that we just have no business being involved with. We just don't.
Well, that's one of the things. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I struggle a little bit though with making those comparisons because one wrong doesn't make another wrong right. Right.
Look, but that's the thing. It's one wrong and another wrong, but even though you don't know about it and you haven't heard the tape, because nobody has, what Clinton was recorded doing as a release, in my mind, Donald Trump saying he grabbed some groupie by a pussy, whatever it was, right? That's here compared to here. I'm not saying that this is good. I'm saying this dwarfs this.
But might I argue, because what you just said is exactly basically what my dad said to me in the first round of Donald Trump when I was like, how can you even support this guy? And he basically said that. He basically said, I don't like Hillary Clinton. I think she's done really terrible things, and so is Donald Trump. And when I gauge what I think of the terrible things both of them have done, I think that Clinton's terrible things are worse than Trump's terrible things, and so I'm going to vote for Trump. And so I might just posit to you that when you say one is here and the other is here, that there's a whole swath of society that is exactly the reverse of that, that thinks the opposite of those two things.
Yeah, and it's kind of a shame, to be honest with you, because I think Americans are woefully underinformed about the things that their country is engaged in routinely. I think that they have a very skewed, media-driven impression of the world, and a very limited, isolated. They've got blinders on, deliberately. It seems like.
I agree with what you just said. My only observation is that I see that the people that are blind to what America does around the world tend to vote right wing because they got the rah 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 waving the flag attitude. It's liberals who are definitely in the camp of, hey, America does a lot of fucked up stuff. Now you're a libertarian and you're not a Republican, so that's a little bit different because libertarians, I think, are more open to that idea. But
I'm something of a center right conservative libertarian-esque thing.
Right.
I don't want to wear any of those firm labels.
No.
But I'm certainly. But the thing is, from my perspective, neoconservatives are just as much in the Democratic Party as they are in the GOP. I know you wouldn't think that to be true, but it's true. You could just see it. You could just see it. I mean, to me, that's what Joe Biden is. He's this weird neoconservative, neoliberal thing that, like,
neither.
I don't know. It doesn't see. I don't get it.
This is what I say all the time. We don't have a left. The United States doesn't have a left. We have conservative and we have conservative light. There is no real left in this country.
There is a left. You're on the left.
There is no. Oh, I am most definitely a lefty, but I don't fit into there. There is no party or no real organization for the left in this country, because the Democrats are, for the most part, pretty center.
I don't think it's their base. It's similar to the GOP. The thing is, like, you say that there's no left. We've talked about this a little bit either last week or the week before. When I was talking about, you're like, well, that's the media. Well, yeah, okay. All that's fine, right? I don't think that the left broadly is small in the United States. And I don't think that, like, paleo, centrist, populist, Republican, conservative types are small either. But I do think that both sides have a shared corporate thing that kind of puts them into a box. And you say, like, well, the left doesn't support this. I'm like, okay, just because your people are ran by corporate elites doesn't mean that there's not a left, a big glowing left-leaning political.
Put it this way.
Constituency.
Right. No, put it this way. Yes, the constituency, rank and file, like the United States, the reality has a liberal bias, right? Most of the people in this country lean leftward. That doesn't mean they're Democrats, obviously. It just means they lean leftward. So, of all those people, the most left aren't represented by any party, even though many of them are part of the Democratic Party. Many of them, they're not really represented by a real party. It's kind of like they just make do for whatever they could get. And overall, as far as like policies, a majority of Americans support more leftist policies than they do right.
Right. When you strip the labels away, then and you just go by, hey, are you for this policy? Are you for that policy? And you take away all the marketing jargon away from them.
So they're not principally opposed to anything that doesn't take away their liberty. Like if you want to have a program that provides, that's fine. But the problem is, I think you're dressing this up because that's in a vacuum. Here in Colorado, Mike and I we were talking about this a couple weeks back. We were talking about TABOR. It's a taxpayer bill of rights that we have in this state. And one of the things it does is it sets limits for taxation to where it's extraordinarily difficult to peel off more money needed for new programs or new ideas, right, to implement. It's like they never get married up, right? So it's like we've got potholes and all sorts of shit in Colorado. People aren't getting paid enough where they should be, teachers and all that. Anyway, so the left would like to get rid of that, right? Because they want to bill some new program without having to address TABOR. But it's kind of like the same thing. Yeah, sure. Yeah, this sounds great. That sounds great. It would be great if we could have free this or free that or low cost this or subsidize that. But that's not, but just couple that with, and here is what you're going to spend for it and see how many people support it.
But the vast majority of the people wouldn't be affected by the kinds of taxes that the left is talking about. It's not going to affect you. Nobody on this panel is going to be affected by the things that they're talking about.
Yeah, but that's not where the conflict comes in. That's not where the conflict, I don't think.
But there's principal arguments against it. Like I'm not against a progressive tax rate. I'm against stupid. I am a practical person, but
I mean, there's this belief in this country. There are a lot of people believe that they're not poor. They're temporarily embarrassed millionaires, and they're just wrong.
Joe the Plumber.
Yeah, big guy, I love you.
yeah. I think the Koch brothers like to pedestalize those kind of people. That's fine, but that's not. But I don't think that's okay. I can't speak for everybody. I'm just me. But like where I come from is, I just was rabble roused. I was just bantering around with Mike the other day about college, right? So you guys wanted you wanted insured government loans. You wanted insured. College is 4 times the cost. It's shittier. Everybody has the degree to be anything you want to be. I don't see how these kind of ideas of like, oh, well, let's just do this thing, right? They always end up not very good.
In what way? Not good.
Well, you have an enormous college debt issue in this country. You have people that seemingly can't pay it off until they're damn near senior citizens. You've got a whole slew of people that I dare to say overeducated for what they need to be, and frankly, not like for what they have in terms of credentials. Means a lot less than it used to mean 50 years ago. It's the expense of it. It's just none of this comes. It never is the way. Oh, we'll just do this, and then it'll just be like, oh, everybody can have this. It's free. It's just the right thing to do. It's like, okay, well, we're worse off because of it.
Well, I mean, I get your point, and I'm not going to dismiss it. But the thing that's weird to me though is in Europe. They don't have the debt problem because basically even more college is paid for by taxes, and they don't have the problem here that we do. So we have the worst of both worlds.
So a concession we made for the stimulus checks that went out was that they should only be to people who make like under 77,000 if they're single.
Yeah,
and so they put in this cap for income, feeling that like the money should only go to those people who really need it, right?
Yeah, I agree.
But what about like just looking at it as it being like a stimulus to the economy, and the people who went and tried to better themselves, they tried to play by the rules and go get that education. We're going to award it to them, and then they're just going to disperse it to everyone rather than looking at it like a trickle down sort of thing, where we give the tax benefit to the rich and then hope that it gets down to us.
They don't spend it, right? Only the people that need to spend it are going to spend it.
Right.
I might pay off a credit card or something. You know,
I'm with Vegas on this. I mean, Suzanne and I we're I think we still, because I think what it says is, for the most part, if you got the $600, you're probably going to get the $1,400 for the most part. Well, we'll get $2,800. We don't need it. I mean, is it nice to get money? Sure. I mean, who's going to say no to money, right? But ultimately, what we're going to end up doing is giving a lot away, either to charities or, in a couple cases, like I've got a friend who's trying to escape Texas, and I'm going to basically drop my whole check on helping them move up north.
I need a new iPad.
So
which would be awesome, except for that it's an iPad, and
yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, I think I think it would have been better to say, okay, people who really desperately need it, maybe even have a lower threshold, maybe 60,000, and give people, another $2,200 or something like that. I think that would make more sense.
But it wasn't just about people who needed the money. Part of the whole idea behind it was to put money into the hands of people that are going to spend it.
Right.
So to keep the local economies afloat.
They need it. Like, the urgency is because there are people that need it.
But
like,
yes,
I don't need it at all. That's not my urgency. But there are people that need it.
There are. But the whole point isn't just that. I mean, you should be able to. They should be giving it to more people, because what you want to do is basically give rocket fuel to local economies so that everybody survives together.
Yeah, but that's the point, though, Rob. Is that okay? Like Chris was saying, the ones that are, the people that are making more money are probably not going to spend it, and the people. So if you give money to people who are really poor, they spend that shit because they're looking for basics. They're just trying to get the rent and food and stuff like that. Yeah,
we can't wait for that check.
This is I had to settle for the cheap VR. This was only the $400 one.
Yeah,
so that means there's a lag when you're trying to do the hand motion.
So that's the reason why basically we're going to end up giving the money one way or another to other people who need it more than us, who will spend it, because like I would pay off a credit card.
So okay, when I walked away, and little guy was like doing his crazy thing here. Vegas was talking about college, and I didn't get to see where that went. I just wanted to say that I agreed with him, and that we need more people going to trade school, and that's something that we should try to direct people to do. I had a feeling he was going to go there, and I don't know if he did or not.
He didn't, but I think he would probably agree, although we can ask him when he gets back. But yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely true. I think when we think of education, we need to not limit our thought to just 4-year colleges. We need to look at 4-year, 2-year trade schools, nursing schools, everything in between. Because hell, near me is one of those places you get a free set of tools, and Rob knows what I'm talking about. If you want to be like a mechanic of some sort or something like that, a welder or whatever, we need that stuff. And actually, as I've pointed out, as automation and mechanization and computer control gets more and more prevalent, we're gonna need more electricians than we could possibly imagine. We're gonna need more metrology people than we could possibly imagine. And that does not require a 4-year degree, especially metrology people. Because I mean, Mike knows. I mean, there's lots of electricians out there. There's very few metrology people.
So only 150 years ago, public school wasn't even a thing, where everybody just went to public school and learned how to read. I can't understand. I mean, if public school became a thing and people don't have to pay for it, why cannot 4-year college tacked onto the end of your high school career become the next thing? And when we talk about where is this money going to come from, maybe it's going to come from the whole idea, the whole problem with this. We don't want to take from the rich socialist bullshit. is that there's this idea that if we get any more money from the rich, that we're taking in capitalist land, that we're stealing money from them that they've rightfully earned, and therefore have a right to their money because they earned it however it is that they earned it, right? It's theirs. They can do with it what they want. We should not take their money from them unwillingly and then redisperse it into the community, right? The thing is that they have become, capitalism has become untethered from the rest of our society. So like, so much so that the people that are the richest people in the world can single-handedly solve entire world problems if we just, like, if you hypothetically, you know, took that amount of money, their net wealth, you know, and redistribute it in various ways. I mean, that's crazy, right? That is a crazy amount of money. And I just don't see how maybe retethering those rich people to the rest of everyone else, such that we can have things like, I don't know, 4 years of college, which is what would that be at Harvard? Would that be $250,000 for
Actually,
a person?
at Harvard, they have endowments and they pay all of their.
I don't want to go into endowments, but I know that that's a thing. But hypothetically speaking, if you were really paying your Harvard bill, you know, like,
Well,
I mean, I'm with you.
Well, and to Sister Danger's point, and I agree with what you just said, Amy. And I, you know, again, as somebody who's in the economy, who has a business, it's actually in the best interest of the rich people with the companies that make all the stuff to have a populace that's educated enough to build the products that they make, who can use the products that they make, who can maintain and sell. And
that's why education became a thing to begin with, because rich people realized that, oh, if my employees can all read, they can do more work and thereby make me more money. Like,
right. Plus the fact that, as I've said many times, you know, the economy is not a constant. You know, the amount of wealth in the economy is not a constant. So, you know, we tend to think, unfortunately, we tend to look at all spending as just spending and not as consumption and not investment. Investments have a tendency, not guaranteed, but a tendency to have a return on the investment. And that actually can help grow the economy. It grows the pie. So, you know, so it's, you know, so people have this thing that, well, if you tax, you know, all these people, then there'll be no money in the economy. And that's not what happens at all, ever. It's how you tax, what you tax, and what you spend the tax money on that determines what impact that's going to have on the economy.
I think that there's an extended adolescence that has been growing. This idea that you're not ready to enter the job market at 16 or at 18 or at 22, you know, and keeping people in education for far longer than they would have been in centuries past. You know, people would be married by the age of 12 in centuries past, you know.
Yeah.
But this extended adolescence and just this expectation that you're supposed to be learning before you enter the job market, I think it's putting us at a disadvantage in terms of just people's work experience. And really, when I look at like the lifespan of a human being, what quality of life do you have if you spend the first 30 of your years of your life learning before you can even enter the job market? We have some really skewed beliefs about education. I really think that if we had people who were high school age, 14, working at McDonald's, if we did not hold them to the basically babysitting that we get in the high schools, and if we actually told people, do your education, you know, but you have to join the workforce at that age, we might have a different sense of priorities with our education.
Maybe
a trade and an education.
Maybe, but to Amy's point before about education and the workforce, I mean, I think about, again, the type of work that I do and the people that I work with. You know, I don't want to have somebody. I don't have time to train somebody that's like just out of high school, who never went to college, who doesn't know, hasn't been taught, you know, engineering, how to think like an engineer. They don't know which end of the computer is up, and despite all the talk about how tech savvy that young people are. They're really not. They know how to use their phone, and they know dick about how the phone actually works. Trust me, I encountered that. I hire engineering interns, and even the ones in college have no fucking clue what's going on.
Or how to write Excel code or anything like that. Like,
Right.
what? What is
Right.
this?
So basically, you know, and even as far as technicians, some people who does metrology, I want some, if I was gonna, I have one instrument guy, but if I were to hire more people, I don't want somebody who doesn't know which end of a meter is up. I want them to know how to turn a screwdriver. So that's what the whole point of like the trade school is: get the basic shit out of the way, and then I can teach them how to actually do the job. But they need those basics to get out. We're too technological, Mike. That's the problem. Is that because 200 years ago, when everyone was out in the workforce at 14 and 16, 70-80% of people worked, or actually almost 90% of people worked in agriculture.
It was 100 years ago. We were a whole agricultural society.
Exactly, and that's why I forget the name of the YouTuber, but he's kind of a weird. He was kind of like a centrist libertarian. Is kind of like some of his ideas on the left, some on the right, and he was trying to say, well, how could we get back to a time when there's no money and we just barter? I'm like, we're in way too technological society to ever get back to that again. I mean, maybe if we blow ourselves up and we're down to 3,000 people again, and then maybe we would do that. But we're in too complicated a world to go back to what you're talking about.
That's thousands of years ago.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Like money, the very existence of money is representative of the fact that society needs to streamline how it's dealing with commerce. So it's actually not a bad thing. What maybe is done with it by certain institutions might be a bad thing, but in and of itself, not a bad thing.
Well, that's why when I run into like anarcho-communists, I think are even slightly dumber than NCAPs, because it's like, okay, you want to have this society where everything's shared equally, which sounds lovely, but since raw materials,
everybody
are not evenly distributed around the world, that it's literally impossible. How you have to have some sort of measurement, whether you called it currency or not. You'd have to have some sort of chit to make sure that everyone got equal amounts of selenium and equal amounts of food and equal amounts of clothing, and you can't do that without a state of some sort, even if it's a loose association.
The problem that I'm trying to get at is, if you can imagine all of those high schoolers and college age people trying to enter the workforce all at the same time, you would probably be imagining the unemployment rate skyrocketing, because our economy cannot handle those people being in the workforce. And therefore, in order to eat up that unemployment rate, we kind of extend adolescence to a little bit later to encompass more and more of our society, to the point where we have 30-year-olds finally finishing their PhD in something that doesn't make a lot of money, but then they finally feel like, okay, I can go out on my own. Right? That's not right. We shouldn't have to be in a sort of economy that promotes that you have to get that much education before you can enter the workforce.
So right, since 1965, not you guys has created an industry. How many more universities per capita to get this senseless? I mean, 2/3, like again, the vast majority don't graduate with STEM degrees. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong, especially for like professions like so-and-so here. I'm not saying that it's not legit, but I'm saying that the vast majority of work that people need to engage with, 1/3 of, there's a slew of people that are leaving this place with debt, and it's a booming industry that's based off of guaranteed government money. Anybody that graduates college or high school with any GPA whatsoever can go to a bank and get a loan guaranteed.
I've seen a lot of colleges that have eschewed the entrance exams, like SAT.
Yeah, that's right. So they don't have those. So I did my wife's degree for her. I'm just going to go out on a record. Pretend I didn't say that. So she got an undergrad in. It doesn't matter. She did it online, and I watched these discussion boards, these people could not write at a high school level. Okay. The people, they are serving the lowest common denominator. You are living in a nation of diploma mills. It's all nonsense. Doesn't mean anything.
I'd say that after the pandemic, a lot more of them have turned into something more like that. I've seen discussion threads that are basically no better than Facebook discussion threads. If you can Facebook, you can go to higher education.
It's pretty. So there is. So if I could circle around, because anyway, somebody was asking me about. There's a difference between basic literacy that's paid for in terms of like your local high schools, your local elementary schools, and so forth, that are paid for with property taxes and sales taxes and things like that to give like a set baseline. I don't think you're going to find almost anyone have an issue with that. But when you talk about higher education and the way that that's funded, yeah, this is nuts. What we're doing is absolutely nuts. Am I on board with trade schools? I guess it's better than what we got now. But it's I don't actually know that in principle I agree with that. I think that these industries should be picking up the tab. I think they should be like, maybe people have a hard time with IQ tests, but there should be something like a candidacy for a new younger individual that's like 18 to go into plumbing or coding or whatever the case is, and whether it be through a union, right, or through a corporate mechanism, you should get your education funded through that, as opposed to going into debt and sinking. It's just this, like, what we have going on here is nuts.
Well, right, but that's my whole point. Is see, if you had a tax, just say you had a corporate a corporate tax, raising corporate taxes specifically for that, because the corporations are the ones that are going to benefit the most by the education. And you can set it up so that's equitable between the small businesses and large businesses, because we all benefit by it. I'm cool with that. Because your point about the debt. I mean, I'm 52. I literally I paid off my student loan debt. In next month it'll be 5 years.
See, that's nuts. This shouldn't be this way. College didn't used to be this way. It used to not have to tie you down for life, and to be there and to get a diploma, to get a college degree, really meant, like, really set you apart. It really meant something. Any idiot can get a college degree.
In some states, it still does. I think the rate is 25%, at least, of Americans of that age that they would have a college degree, have a bachelor's degree. Here in Colorado, it's 33%, and
so right. I'm one of the dropouts, but the thing is, like, so I'm a developer, right? I've been doing it for a long time. I had a career change after being in combat so long. I needed to have a career change. I went to the university. I dropped out. I started working in tech. The reality of it is, I got enough to know that it didn't matter for me. I make pretty good money. I don't know. I didn't like school. I went to the Marines because I didn't like school. It wasn't for me. Figured out war also wasn't for me.
I mean, I'm sort of with you a little bit on the part of my reason that I don't want to go to university is because I feel like everything basically in the first 2 to 3 years will just be a trash waste of my time. I don't want to be told what classes I have to take, that I have to have math if I want to study English, or vice versa, or hard sciences, if I want to study law, right? Like, unless those things are relative somehow to the area of law I want to go into. I don't feel like I should have to pay that amount of money to do things like learn how to write a whole fucking sentence, right?
I want to say I agree. I do, because I've taken a lot of classes that or frankly just indoctrination. But so I made it through about the tail end of my junior year, through a mix of different universities, brick and mortar universities. Last one I went to was in St. Louis. And like taking sociology and some of these undergrad things, I don't want to take away the value of an education like this for people, because it's not nothing, and it does make you a more well-rounded. It kind of gives you exposure to ideas that you probably wouldn't have otherwise. I don't want to diminish the value of it for people that have gone through it and completed it, but I don't know why people need it. The vast majority of people, I don't know.
Well,
I think you said it well-rounded.
well,
it does. There's an aspect to it about that, right? But it does get coupled. This, you'll see conservatives like me complaining because they'll be in their sociology class with Max Weber and learning all the rest of the shit. Like very little American Enlightenment, a lot more Marx.
Well, here's the thing, though. You said about people, the inability to, form a sentence and articulate. That's why you have some of those basic classes that seem like they're nothing. But okay, I went to engineering school, so you wouldn't think there'd be anything of humanities because that's not at all related to engineering, right? Well, what we were told when we started was that we don't want engineers who come out and all you are is a human calculator. If you can't articulate your ideas to other people, your education is worthless. So, and in the workforce, if you can't articulate, you're going to be the kind of guy they shove in a room, and you're going to crunch numbers all day, and that's all you're ever going to amount to. So we had to take every semester either humanities or history. So I took philosophy. I took a bunch of history classes. I'm not an expert in any of those, but the whole idea was to kind of give you a more broad education, and I think it was relevant. And I compare myself to people who went to other engineering schools where they didn't do that, and I'm well ahead of the game. And
do you think you would have? How handicapped would you have been had you not gone to that particular engineering school, or do you not think that you could have been in a similar situation, taking a different path? Because for me, like, there's always this idea of they're going from A to B makes you like you go to the Marine Corps, right? Well, they're going to turn you into a Marine. You're going to be this slob, and then you're going to go in there, and you're going to be fucking He-Man 6 months. Just watch. It's not really true, because it attracts a certain kind of person that is already insane enough to do it. So, like, you get what I'm saying there? Like,
I know what you're saying.
It's almost more like it weeds out rather than anything else.
Well, that is part of it. But the thing is, as a result, I mean, beyond me, I look at every year they come out with like the colleges, like the top 10 salaries out of school, 5 years out of school, 10 years out of school, 20 years out of school. My school is always in the top, usually in the top 3 or 4, and never lower than the top 6. So clearly that the school is doing something right, and that form of education has resulted in us making more money than our contemporaries.
It's also a lot more practical compared to other people that are walking around with an arts degree. No offense.
Oh, absolutely. And that is a big problem. I remember a few years back, I heard somebody, I don't know, some shithead say that that they disagreed with the idea that you should get your education to go into the workforce, that you should just take something you're interested in. And I'm like, that's fucking ridiculous. You're going to go in and you're going to go seriously in debt to get, Bachelor 101. I mean, that's crazy.
I kind of want to push back on it a little bit, because there is still a need. We still need the humanities, like to study philosophy. We need philosophers. We need these things in some capacity. We do.
We do,
but we don't know. But like in our society where you need an ROI, you have to fucking work. You have to make a living. You have to, like, it's just, there's this mismatch of because there are values and things that we don't place value upon. Now, I'm going to sound like a lefty here, but the thing is, like, I get like, because I interpret.
Don't do that.
Well, I interpret some of this, the way that the left wing is animated seems to be driven in part by like It's misappropriation of people that have to go get their masters or whatever and get these certifications, and then they look at like some schlub like me, and then they're like, oh well, you know, he's got a fancy truck, he's got a fancy house, he's got this. Like, it's not fair, right? Or well,
say that.
I can kind of detect it from the SJW sort of academics, right? Where the way that's how I interpret it. Is there's almost like they cannot stand that their foray into art or something that this capitalist society does not value. Like, they could go study something for 8-10 years, whatever it was, make this masterpiece, and no one gives a shit.
Wow.
They contribute to whatever. No one, like, it doesn't matter here, right?
I want to push back on that.
What's that?
Well, you say they go and they create this masterpiece after studying for 8 to 10 years, and nobody gives a shit. I understand that this is an example, but I get it. I want to push back on that though, because I don't agree with the nobody gives a shit part. If that was the case, nobody would have this uproar if you ask them whether or not art should be free, right?
I'm going to prove you wrong.
If you ask people whether or not art should be free, they'll tell you yes. You know why? Because they look at art all day long. They look at people's sculptures in public over and over and over and over every day when they drive there for free. But that artist got
free
paid
to
once.
Consume, but not free to create.
Well, my point is that when you call the plumber once and he comes over to your house and he fixes something, you cannot then forever call him and he comes over for free and fixes it. But if I sculpt something and it goes up in public, right, I get paid once for it, and everybody forever gets to enjoy that sculpture, or maybe like not enjoy it if they
that's well and good, but are you getting paid? Where we live, the reward is
so up in public though, because they improve the morale of the community and the society to have those things.
Great. How much are they getting paid? All I'm saying is it
a
fair?
Not fair amount. No, it is not.
For someone to go to school up until they get all the way through their graduate education and some PhDs. But I work with PhDs and high school dropouts alike, and it's hard to tell them apart in my industry in some places. Okay, I know that that's not Joe's experience, but from my experience,
a concession to that there are people who have a piece of paper who maybe shouldn't have that piece of paper.
Oh, I agree with that.
So there's a whole gamut here. Like, I'm talking working in the same job, people that have PhDs, high school dropouts. You could not tell them apart. Could not, if you tried. Is it fair that someone that uses and leverages their degree at it, like to go into counseling, is getting paid 70% or 60% of what a developer makes 5 years out of having an undergrad, or something like that? Is that fair?
I've had it.
It's just so like I kind of wrestle with this.
I've actually looked at this in that I've worked alongside nurses who went to not a 4-year bachelor's program, a 3-year hurried program, and they're 21 years old, and they will be paid more than me in the same structure of an agency, working at a detox or in an emergency room. Their pay will be double mine.
Right. So right, and then the starving artist and all. So like, I get the compulsion there, because there is value in these things. Yes. I recognize that there is value in these things, and we don't really have a good way to appropriately distribute the effort.
Raise the minimum wage.
Well, that's not going to, I mean, if you think that's, I don't think $15 necessarily goes far enough, but
no,
for some of those roles, but I also think it's too much for some.
When you bring the bottom up, it doesn't just move the salaries of the people at the very bottom. It tends to have an effect to push up the people just above them.
Joe, you're going to put, they're telling you
this is what the statistics tell us. It's not new. We've been through this
New York is different than Kentucky.
No, I'm not talking. Well, they are. That's true. But my whole point. Well, actually, that's the thing. Is actually the minimum wage in New York should probably be $20 an hour. But I mean, if you think about it, $15 an hour is about just under $32,000, like 31.
People will lose jobs because of that policy. They will lose jobs.
Well, here's the thing.
I don't think so.
I was reading something about like what happened in Seattle, right? They raised the minimum wage. So now it was reported that, okay, this resulted in some job loss. Turned out when you actually look at the investigation, wasn't really what happened. What happened was they looked at the people who were in the band of 15 and who were earning 15 and less. And then when the minimum wage went to $15, they looked at the same people and said, how many of them are still working in their jobs? Well, what happened was a lot of them got better jobs, but so they basically placed out of that range and were no longer counted in the study. So they didn't lose their job. They either got paid more and priced out of that range, or they got better jobs. So the idea that there was going to be this massive loss of jobs is what we were always told. Every single time the minimum wage goes up, we're always told this, and it never fucking happens.
This is a huge jump, for one, and two, not every job needs to be a minimum or a livable wage. What about I'm home from college, I'm going to go be the lumberjack for 3 months. What about my teenagers need to go get a job so they can pay their car insurance?
The age of people making minimum wage is 34. So that, again, because that's the right wing always tells us, oh, it's all college students. No, it's not. If it was just college students, I would agree with
I'm
you.
not saying it's all college students. I'm saying what about the ones that are not going to be able to seek employment?
I don't even have a problem of saying we're going to make an exception and say, okay, for college students, we're only going to pay them $10 an hour. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, then we could probably meet around there. But there's a ton of people. There are a ton of people that are in that position that people don't think about.
And they're about 10% of the people on minimum wage.
Come on.
Yeah, for the average to be 34, it's very easy math. If you got college people who are all largely, 18 to 22, and if the median and average ages are both in the mid 30s, that means most people have to be much higher than that. That means it can only be a small portion. It's actually very simple math.
It doesn't matter. You're not going to get it.
Have more than 20%. You couldn't have more than 20% in that category. Otherwise, that would pull the average down.
Not only do you have to figure that all of the majority of them are older than that, you have to figure that there's a lot of people working at Walmart and King Soopers and Safeway.
Yeah, some of those people make a lot of money.
So
ask them how much they make. I'll tell you.
But if for no other reason, like those people need to be paid, if for no other reason that it does the basic service to all people and reminds companies that nobody is your corporate slave, that you have to pay people, and that people should learn that their man hours, whatever they may be doing, are worth compensation. I think that is really incredibly important.
Well, with my company, I've got one person currently making $13 an hour because they're part time.
Are you going to hell because of it?
Everybody else in the company, including engineering interns, makes at least 15. In fact, anyone who's full time is making at least $22.50 right now, or at least in my company. So raising the minimum wage, I literally have to raise one person's wage by $2 an hour.
Yeah, but okay. At my engineering company, everybody makes more than $15 an hour. Well, I'd hope so. That is a little bit different than someone bagging groceries. That isn't the same thing.
So here's the thing, but that's the argument that they use all the time, and they'll say, "Oh, those jobs are for kids anyway." But Walmart is open between 7 o'clock and 3 o'clock.
And old people and extra people money.
But old people also need to put a roof over their head and feed
because you can't live. Most people can't live on Social Security. That doesn't.
Okay. I'm just saying, don't discount the people that are doing it for something to do and to have a little spending cash.
No. You cannot say, oh, you get to be paid $15 an hour for the minimum wage, but you get to be paid $20 an hour for the minimum wage, because we assessed the reasons why you're doing this job. And for you, it's your summer thing to raise money for the Corvette you want to get when you graduate. And for you, you're an old person who needs to put food on the table. So we're going to pay. No, fuck that. People's
Almost as
reasons
bad.
for why they choose to do their job are their own reasons. You pay them money for the work that is done.
Why do you not
Well,
want
no.
these people to have jobs? I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean,
What?
here's some.
Would you ask me why I don't want people to have jobs?
Sorry.
I mean, if that was
Isn't that
actually
what you said?
So
You
here's
want people to be
I mean,
unemployed?
if that's what you're asking, I mean, I can answer it, because who the hell
I'm
doesn't
just-
want
I'm
to
just
live like a
kidding.
Kardashian? What do I do for my life? I don't know. I schedule my different like plastic surgery appointments, go swimming and shopping. That's what I do for a life. That's why I don't want everyone to have jobs.
Here's another thing too, and this is again this myth that everyone's gonna be out of work. So
Not everyone's going to be out of work. They estimated 1.5 million jobs nationally.
yeah, which is a drop in the bucket, and most of those jobs would be replaced by other jobs. It would be. Anyway, because also now when people have more money, they spend more, and we also have evidence to show that you do not see any long-term effect on inflation. But so tipped workers still make $2.13 an hour. That's which is ridiculous. Now, okay, they're making tips, but here's the thing. I recall when I was young, the customary.
That's different in every state, by the way.
Well, I know, but I'm saying I'm talking federal. I mean, that's the minimum wage is higher than $7.25 in New Jersey, for instance, too. But that's not the point. The point is the federal minimum wage. So tip workers, the federal minimum is $2.13 an hour, right? So when I was a kid, and up through high school, I guess it was, the customary tip was 10%. Then it was 12%, then 15%, 18%. Now it's 20%. The reason why is because we are subsidizing restaurants so that they don't have to pay their workers more. So
that's what I tip, 20%.
Right. But here's the thing, is that you shouldn't need to. The reason why the customary tip doubled is because cost of living went up, and cost of food went up too. So you think about it, if it was just proportional, the food's gone up like since 1980. Food's tripled in price in the restaurants. So you would think, well, okay, proportionally it should still be paying 10%. But no, the reason why is because that 213 is so disproportionately low, and so much times.
Have you ever eaten in a German restaurant?
Yes.
Like in Germany?
Yes.
You have?
Yes,
okay.
I have.
So you know how shitty it is, right? It takes you 3 hours to get your food. Like
that was not my experience.
I've
been to Germany 4 times. It was not.
This is the problem with giving these people livable wages. They don't give you good service.
I've spent a month in the UK total. It was not my experience was not the same as yours.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
So we were before.
But let me understand, Rob. So the whole thing is that if we actually raise the minimum wage for tipped workers, right? Even if you didn't make it 15, just say you made it 7 or 8 or whatever. Well, now the customary tip gets smaller because the people are getting paid more. So right now is we are basically we are paying, because people say, oh well, if the restaurants had to pay more, that the cost of the food would go up. The cost of food did go up, not only proportionally, but more than proportionally, because the tip went up disproportionately, because it needed to, because otherwise the people would starve to death. So basically, what's happened is that the restaurants have foisted their costs onto us, and we've ignored it.
So I don't have any, okay, uniquely to servers that work in this industry. If you want to raise their minimum wage to be everybody else's, I don't care. It's fine. Sure. I mean, I am going to tip them less, but
that's fine.
But I'm going to tip them less, and my food's going to be cold. Thanks, but okay.
See, the thing is, I disagree with that, because I think that basically
take that out on the server, not the restaurant.
It's just like Europe; all their food sucks.
That doesn't answer my question.
How the hell you've been?
What?
You don't punish the server for that. You punish the restaurant for that. What?
Chris told me that
I'm just being silly.
Stands for to ensure prompt service.
That's right. Give me my food hot.
But that's not the server under the server's control.
Well, he should get back there and start cracking some whips. I don't know.
No, you should get paid more than $7 an hour.
He also
Whatever the fuck
told
they
me
get
that
paid.
some people see the glass is half full. Some people see it as the glass is half empty.
You want to give them a minimum wage for servers? So be it. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm sure
Chris
it'll
sees
be
the
fine.
glass as this girl's not getting a tip from me because this glass is not.
But look, all I'm saying is it's rare, but when I have shitty service, I do like to go down to like 12.5 or 15 just to stick it to it.
I find it funny that you say that because when I was growing up, 10% was that was it, but it isn't that now.
And actually, Vegas, to your point though, that's actually what I'm saying is that if the people were getting paid more as a base wage, you wouldn't need to pay. You wouldn't need to tip as much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually pretty solid tipper actually.
Well, I've actually, in sitting down in a restaurant and eating, I've done the math in my head of how much I can make as a mental health professional hourly, and then I look at
some of them are doing better than you, dude.
Yeah, but if a waitress has 4 tables and each one of them is tipping 20%, and each of the tables is at least 2 people at it, and the meal is like $50, that waitress is making a lot more than I would be,
So this is people that inconvenient truth for people. Like people say, oh, they're so well off. I'm like, not all of them.
Well,
a lot of them are making a lot.
Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, again, and that's not an inconvenient truth to me. My whole point is that think about that though. The person working has a good gig, working in the expensive restaurant, they're not working any harder than the one working in the shitty place.
Yeah,
but the part in the city, you know what I mean? No,
they are.
I would say,
come on. Yes, they are. Come on. There's a reason you ain't eating at the shitty restaurant. Come on. Yes, they are. They're better. Service is awesome. Come on.
How hard they're working.
I'm just saying a reputation is developed from good food, good service.
There are different levels of service.
Right, but you just defeated your own argument, though. Your argument is, oh well, if people are getting more money, then they wouldn't be taking care of me so well. Well, yeah. So they're because the thing about it, in those good places, they're probably also not making.
I'm not really arguing against raising the minimum wage, though.
No, I know, but I'm just saying you were saying earlier though that if they got paid a decent wage, then they wouldn't. I
was joking.
All right.
I wasn't being serious. Yes, they should die if my food's not hot.
I didn't hear you say that, so that's why I wasn't thinking you were. If I'd heard that, I would have realized you were joking.
I knew your true colors would come out eventually.
So I've been to a place called Maggiano's here. It's an Italian restaurant here in Denver, and every time you go there with a party of more than 8, they automatically put the 20% tip.
That's everywhere. That's everywhere.
Yeah. And by the way, are you even saying that correct? Is it Maggiano? It's not Maggiano?
I don't know if I'm saying it correct.
Oh, okay.
I'm mispronouncing the name. Good.
I don't know. I'm asking.
But at Maggiano's, each meal for one person is like $50. So like the service that you get when you're just 2 people without the tip automatically put on the bill might be a little bit better than when they know that they're going to get that tip because it's automatically put on the bill. So the parties of 8 or more, the wedding parties, they're going to get worse service because it's basically a given that they're going to get a
given. That's why you don't tip on, like when you order a pizza or whatever, you don't tip on the thing. You wait till they get to your place to tip them. So they can't
like a DoorDash or something. You mean?
Yeah, DoorDash or whatever.
Yeah, well, if you
Uber,
do DoorDash, you can. I mean, I just put the
you
tip.
can go back and change your tip, can't you?
No, not on DoorDash or Seamless anyway.
Well, don't they give you the little slip at the door that, like, you sign it, you add the tip to?
It's prepaid, and they just drop the food and walk away.
That might have been the case before COVID, but definitely after COVID, not the case because you're not supposed to have contact, I don't think, with the customer, like the receiver, so that they leave it like They used to knock on our door and wait, and now it's just knock and there's food sitting on your porch.
Yeah.
So.
Well, also, I just want to address something that your fallacy is said there. Said that, well, that the restaurant has to make up the difference if you tip less than what what's customary. That's not the case every place. So maybe in some states, that's not universal.
This is what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Fallacy doesn't tip because it's a lie to say that they only get $2 an hour. Well, it might not be because, by the way, their like minimum wage is different.
You don't tip, dude.
But
really?
Yeah, like that's super douchey.
And in fact, in some restaurants, the bosses will actually take the tips because it goes into a tip pool.
That's
a lot of servers tip their bussers and a lot of other people that don't get tips who also get paid poorly. So a lot of that tip does very often get shared with other people. So if you don't tip, you're a dickhead.
I bet you.
I mean, like if
$10
you don't tip,
your
you probably don't
fallacy
get
is
dates
a left winger.
Second dates probably don't get.
I doubt it.
Dates.
I bet you he is.
Okay, what do you think? Left wing or right wing, guys? Is fallacy left wing or right wing?
Who would you vote for in the last?
People who don't tip, I'm going to go. I'm going to go right.
What?
I'm just saying. They're a little bit stingier.
Stingier?
Here's the thing. I don't doubt that there's people on the left who don't tip, but based on the way that was worded, I would bet you that that's not a person on the left.
That is a person.
Yeah.
That is
okay. Not the left. I'll go with Joe. Actually, I don't know if they're necessarily right wing, but I think they are definitely not the left.
So this isn't my story to tell, but Misty, she was a waitress a long time ago in a Cracker Barrel, and they actually passed around this form that they wanted everyone to sign to declare that they would not declare that they made less than minimum wage so that the company would pay them more. They tried to force them to sign this thing, which was really unenforceable, but they were trying to discourage the waitresses from ever declaring that they made less than that minimum wage
so
that they could have the company pay the difference. And there are many establishments, especially the smaller ones that aren't chains, that also put that pressure on their waitresses to not have the company pay them that difference.
But that's tantamount to coercion. How can that even be legal?
You know what? When people aren't unionized or when they're not working for a larger organization, a lot of that crap still goes on. And waitresses are not unionized.
Yeah, that's true.
On what grounds could they have to actually unionize, though? Like, what are they going to do?
They have a trade that they ply. They give you service.
I don't know.
I understand. I look at the unions that are the most successful, right? And I'd say the most successful union in Colorado right now is the one that's serving all of the people who work at Kroger's and King Soopers.
Yeah.
Why do they have a need for unionization?
So I've seen that, though. It's just the only place. That's pretty common amongst grocers for some reason. I've seen that in a lot of different states. And typically when they get into a dispute, you know what happens? They stand outside and nothing happens. Then you got all the scabs. Like they don't. It doesn't seem to actually do much.
I have noticed that picket signs do not keep people from shopping for their groceries.
No. So I've seen this happen. So I'm not saying that it's not a thing. It is prevalent with grocers, but they don't seem to have that much power.
How did that vote go for Amazon workers to get a union?
They might have more success, at least in the short term.
There was an Amazon plant that was going for unionization.
There's also a Google employees union thing going on.
I thought they got fired, the people that were heading that up.
Google?
No, Amazon.
I don't know.
Looks like it's still in progress. I'm seeing a thing here on CNBC. Democratic lawmakers show solidarity for Amazon union vote in Alabama.
The thing about the Amazon one, I don't know what it's going to end up being, but like almost nothing that's been publicly stated about it seems to be that hard of a deal. Like the whole, don't breathe down my neck. I just want to go take a piss because I had a lot of coffee. That means I had to go twice this hour instead of once this hour kind of stuff.
That's, I mean, there's a lot of fucked up rules that companies have. And you mentioned unions protesting. There's a little that opened up near me, because I think they're like European. But they were out there last winter protesting the store and picketing the store.
Is that a grocery store?
Yeah, grocery store. I actually
did it do anything?
No, unfortunately, but I did deliver. Go to like Dunkin' Donuts and pick up coffee and donuts for everybody a few times. And then the one day when it was hot, I brought water.
Yeah, they do. That's a weird thing with grocery stores and their unions. Like, it's like the only really prevalent, low-wage, low-skilled union thing I've ever seen, and it almost achieves nothing. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, part of the problem with grocery stores, too, to be fair, is that the margins are very low.
The margins are nothing. They're operating on nothing.
Yeah. I mean, basically,
it's like 3%, 5%.
Yeah, they do volume is how they make their money.
Restaurants are kind of the same though. They have real low profit margins too.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing though. If just say they were forced to raise everybody by $1 an hour. So what's going to happen? It's not that their profits are going to go down. As long as everybody is doing it, as long as it's industry wide, then everybody's going to raise their price, which is okay, because quite frankly, I feel like here in America, we have a lot of things that are artificially cheap. You look at how cheap, compared to the rest of the world, what we pay for gasoline. We pay a ridiculously low amount of gasoline, and it doesn't cover what the impact is, the environmental impact, or any of the other impact of getting that oil. So it's basically we're living in a fantasy world where we basically don't pay what things really cost, and then we wonder why we have problems.
Well, you can interpret that two ways, but yeah.
What is the other way?
The rest of the world taxes the shit out of their stuff. That tax, the gas, their oil taxes. I mean, you can say what you want, right, about wages and all the rest, but I'm telling you right now, don't tell me that living in Western Europe anywhere, or especially Northern Europe, is cheap.
No,
it's not. It's more expensive. They have less material wealth.
But here's the thing, though. They have more disposable income. They travel more. They go on vacation longer and further and for longer than we do. So that's the thing, that's the kind of strange dichotomy. They make less money. They get taxed at higher rates, and yet they have more to show for it.
Do they?
Yeah, they do.
They live in those little boxy ass European houses. Ugh, so gross. Everything looks like IKEA. It's terrible.
Again, there's certainly parts in the Midlands that in England I would say that probably applies to, because they're like working class stuff. But yeah, that's not universally true. You go to like Dorset, Devon, Cornwall, pretty nice. Somerset. I've driven like pretty much everything except the East Midlands and like Kent. Otherwise, I've been everywhere else in England. That's not my experience.
When Vegas goes to McDonald's, he orders freedom fries.
That's right.
That's right. You do
and that's
not.
The only thing I order when I go there. Just that.
In fact, it should just be renamed McFreedom Fries.
Well, the funny thing about the whole freedom fries thing is that apparently during World War I, coleslaw was renamed Liberty Cabbage. So we've been doing the same stupid, jingoistic bullshit for a long fucking time.
But why? Why? It's like, I don't think we have a beef with France though. So I don't remember. Did we have it at the time that we started?
There was a beef with France over some bullshit, and so then it was freedom fries. It was just, and we weren't even at war with them. It was just
like what? We call our California wine shitty or something? I don't know. I don't remember when we started that.
I'm trying to remember. Let me see. Here we go. Freedom fries. Okay, term was created in February 2003 in a North Carolina restaurant. Was widely publicized a month later. Bob Ney renamed the menu item in 3 congressional cafeterias. It was French opposition to the Gulf War II. So that was supposed to be, we're gonna show them. Meanwhile, the fucking things are Belgian to begin with, and and the French just call them pommes frites. So they didn't give a fuck. They didn't
even know what's happening. They didn't care.
Yeah, they didn't know or care. Like, look at those stupid Americans.
Up there with English muffins.
Well, at least
crumpets. They will yell at you. They will scream in your face.
English muffins and crumpets are different things.
They're similar.
Are they?
They're similar.
Yes, they are.
Well, the main
I thought a crumpet was an English muffin. Is it not?
Well,
no.
They're close. The main difference is that crumpets are griddled on one side, and English muffins are griddled on both sides.
What? Oh my God!
And the English muffin, as we know it, was called a muffin about 150 years ago in England, but they don't call it that.
So we're the proper ones. We speak the proper English.
Yep.
That's right.
Well, and there's a number of things like that, actually. There's this really great show called The Adventure of English, and it goes back from like the 500s to today. And they were talking about, the guy who hosts the show was talking about how in the late 1700s, early 1800s, that British linguists were getting upset about the affectations that were coming into the British English, and that the Americans, they spoke a more true version of the Queen's English, and we should be more like them.
Yeah, I was going to mention that we actually speak better English than the English do.
I am almost certain this is an American fantasy, though.
No,
I'm pretty sure that we probably are stroking ourselves.
No, it was actually a British linguist.
Oh yeah, try to tell that to a Brit, though.
Well,
I have.
Yeah, I do.
Well, are those Americans with college educations or non-college educations?
Well, it's just like the whole thing about soccer. We didn't invent the term; the British did.
It's true. I didn't know.
I thought they called it football in England.
They do.
Some of them do. It's become more popular.
At the time, there were multiple versions of what they called football. There was rugby football, which is what our football, American football, is more based on. There was, and then there was what we call soccer was association football, and so they called it so. And at the time, there was this thing of abbreviating everything, so it was like soccer, like SOCCA, that's short for association, and eventually morphed into soccer, which we and the Canadians both say, and the Brits don't really say anymore. But we didn't invent the term; they did, and they tried, but they hold us accountable for it.
But like, who cares?
Yeah, I know.
Like, it's that's a silly thing for people to just, because I've seen people get animated. One of my daughter's coaches over the years he played on the end. She's played for some pretty good clubs, and she had this British coach, and he was adamant about calling it football. Weird thing to get upset about.
Well, the same thing.
I hear something talking in the background. Does anybody else hear that?
I hear it too. But yeah, that's the thing. I think is funny about football too. Again, it was our football was based on rugby football, and we dropped the rugby and kept the football part. And they're like, "Whoa, why do you call it football? It's not football."
I will say this though: I am world traveled, and I don't give a shit. North American football is the best sport in the world. It is that simple. Everybody else is wrong. Fuck them. North American football is the greatest sport ever created.
If it doesn't,
fight you.
If it doesn't start with B and end in ace ball, I don't care about it.
Well, first of all, you definitely have to put down some standards about what even quantifies best, because arguably, if it has to do with things like stats and numbers and whatever, Joe's got it. Baseball is actually like the winning sport of the world. I fucking hate baseball. It is the most boring, crappy thing to watch. It's like 3 minutes of activity just packed into a 3-hour game, right?
Have you been to a baseball game, like an MLB game?
Major leagues?
Yeah.
Actually, I don't really know the answer.
Go.
Yes, I've been to a
Go to a
Mariners
game.
Major League, right? A Mariners game?
Yeah.
Yes, the Mariners.
Yes, they count.
Kind of. Like,
It's
Remember
almost
that part where I said I hate baseball?
they're barely there.
So yeah, I've been to a Mariners game. Apparently my brain has tried to self-scrub it, to like save itself from the memory. But what I'm trying to say is, like, as far as the athleticism and the whatevers are concerned, that sport is arguably, like, numbers wise, right?
Not even close. Not even close.
It doesn't even rank on things I like to watch. I mean, it's just not up there, right? I like sports that I think are great are like gymnastics. I think that U.S. Olympics gymnastics is fabulous. I used to be a swimmer, so I like to watch swimming, right? I like to watch tennis. I think tennis is fabulous. It's hockey. There's blood on the ice. Come on, how can you not like that?
Oh God,
Hockey's all right, but just for the record, this panel thinks all like men and women are the same, except
the
for
best part.
And
The
that's
best
proof
part of
right
football
there.
is the tight end.
So I'm missing 3 title fights in a UFC pay-per-view just to talk to you guys right now. But right after this, I'm gonna watch
better
this
than
fight.
football.
And no, I don't think men and women are the same, because there was a really great joke from the president of UFC, Dana White, when Logan Paul was trying to call out UFC fighters to try to get a real MMA fight so that he could drum up some attention for himself. And Dana White said, I'm not going to have him fight any of those guys, but I might give him Amanda Nunes. She can knock him out. And it's not funny if you believe that men and women are just the same. It's funny when you think of it in terms of there is a difference, and there are 2 different leagues.
No, that is, yeah, and it's probably true. She probably could knock him out.
Yeah, I want to see it. I would pay.
So
I would pay. Here's my wallet. Just take my money.
Take my money.
Here.
Also, can I switch the topic?
Yes.
Okay, so speaking of like chicks and fighting and whatever, did you guys see this last week that Bill Burr defended Gina Carrero, whatever?
Carano, is it?
Yeah,
Carano?
Carano. I don't know. Carano.
Carano.
Thank you. Yeah, did you guys see that Bill Burr defended her?
No.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, he's a douchebag too. I mean, I like the comedy when he's a douchebag too. So. But he admits he's a douchebag. That's the thing. So I'm not telling any stories out of school.
Why do you guys razz on Gina Carano? She didn't do nothing wrong.
Again, you apparently did not see the things that we did see.
Well, so it comes back to the whole cancel culture thing that I think ties in also to the whole Dr. Seuss canceling thing this week that happened, right? With the canceling of
No,
you don't think so?
No,
No.
Dr. Seuss, anything was canceled. No.
What?
That's bullshit.
Dr.
No.
Seuss, the publisher, the owners of Dr. Seuss canceled themselves. What are you talking about?
That's not cancel culture.
Oh,
It's a private
shut
entity.
up. Yes,
How?
it is.
How?
Oh,
How?
come on.
How? What pressure?
Because.
What pressure from an outside group was put on them to take stock of their own inventory?
Okay, so
that
it's
would
not
be
that they got infiltrated by a bunch of left-wingers and decided to cancel themselves. That's not what it was. Is that what you're telling me?
it's the guy.
Yes, that's what we're telling you. That's not what it was.
Yeah, it's the theater guy, so estate. So it wasn't even the publisher; it was the owner of the IP.
Well, it wasn't fucking Dr. Seuss.
Well, which is the family. The family
his
owns the
Family.
IP.
It was his estate.
Ugh,
Yeah, his estate owns the IP.
so gross.
What is gross about it?
It's Dr. Seuss. It's fine. Okay, so what was it? The examples I heard that
Slanty eyes.
right.
Just one of them.
So it was
slanty eyes.
Asians in what's the symbol hat? What's that thing called?
The rice hats that they wear?
Yeah,
what
what I
you
forget. It has a name. I can't remember.
I don't know. Actually.
Whatever the name of that. So it depicted that and Africans wearing grass skirts in one of those books. Like, oh, the whore.
I don't think it's
Like, oh, the whore.
Yeah, again, this is what we were talking about the other few weeks ago, though. These are representations that mean nothing to you because they don't harm you.
But who are they depicting?
Yeah, and again, this is the fucking bullshit that I've had to deal with my whole fucking life, dude. This idea that we're fucking jungle bunnies, okay? So maybe you don't give a fuck, because of course it doesn't matter to you. You're a white dude. Big fuck you. But it
okay.
fucking
We're
matters
gonna look
to
at
me,
it.
asshole. Fuck you.
They were. I doubt that Dr. Seuss was depicting the African American.
It doesn't matter.
Why does it matter if it's American or not? Why would
Should
that
they
matter?
cancel It's a Small World at Disneyland?
Does it denigrate anybody's ethnicity?
Yeah, this is what we're talking about. See, it's on the screen. Please, fuck you. Don't tell me this isn't fucking harmful.
Oh.
Those are
oh, this is we keep telling you. You don't see this shit, and you're like, oh, they're just going off about nothing. And then you see it, and you go, oh, yeah. Why don't you look into shit instead of fucking assuming living in your right-wing bubble?
So here's what it says. And the wolf chewed up the children and spit out their bones, but those were foreign children, and it didn't really matter. That's what so this is a page from one of the books.
I can't see it.
Yeah, go to the next one with the exaggerated lips and all that shit. The one you just showed. Go forward.
Okay, go back one. Okay, hold on, give me a sec. Because I have multiples here.
No, the other one.
This was it.
No, you had there was a third one. One more.
Oh, here?
Look at the bottom panel.
Yeah.
Exaggerated lips and the exaggerated ears, heads.
I'm not trying to cop out. I just can't see it. Let me try to blow it up. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's there.
A Chinese boy who eats with sticks. So this is
now, see, this one doesn't seem too bad to me.
Well, but then there's like this thing. You probably can't see it, but over here on the side, apparently the original doesn't say a Chinese boy. It says a Chinaman, like all one word, Chinaman. That's not as bad as calling them the Celestials.
This one's a little bit worse than the last one, but
especially since how they all look the same. Oh, and actually, honorable fifth column. So you know what fifth column is.
I don't actually.
Okay, so the idea is that they're infiltrators, that they're there to cause harm, that they're basically a secret army.
So I'll go to the African island of Yurka and bring back a tizzle-topped tufted mazurka, a kind of canary with quite a tall throat. His neck is so long if he swallows an oat. For breakfast, the first day of April, they say it has to go down such a very long way that it gets to his stomach on the 15th of May. I think that the objection here is that this thing described as a tizzle top.
All right.
No, the bird in the middle is the tizzle top. The people with the exaggerated ears
are like slaves.
Are African, supposedly.
Yeah. Carrying the bird on a stick.
Yeah.
All right, you got me. You got me on one.
Zing! Ha ha!
There you go.
Mike's so excited. I'm not right about it. I know. I didn't know. You're right. I didn't look into it.
Yeah, but that's the problem. People, they just think, oh, Dr. Seuss, and they're thinking the Lorax. They're thinking, Cat in the Hat. But that's
all right. So okay. Educate me on Carano.
Okay.
Well, she made posts that were tantamount to anti-Semitism.
I read it. It seemed the opposite from what I've heard.
And Disney did not like it, so they canceled her contract. No, the people wanted her fired for mocking trans people. That was the big thing.
No.
On eBay right
what?
I'm looking on eBay right now. Cara Dune's action figure is going for like $200.
Whoa!
I want to know how much the Dr. Seuss books are going for.
Can't sell them anymore.
You can't sell them anymore?
that at eBay they got up to $500, and now eBay doesn't allow you to sell them on the.
I don't know if you guys
So,
can hear
okay.
that, but I'm being told here in the background.
While you look up Carano, there's one thing though that I don't agree with, even though it is racist, and I still want it to exist. As awful as this is sounding, I'm listening to myself. Mark Twain.
Yeah, somebody
right?
said in the comments, right? Adventures of Huck Finn.
Yeah, right. So, like,
Yeah.
I don't know that should be, because that is sort of a staple in time thing.
Well, here's the thing, though. I'm
Uncle Tom's Cabin too.
not against Tom Sawyer or Huck Finn.
Oh.
Because here's the thing. Because actually, what he was actually doing, what Twain was actually doing, is he was writing in the vernacular of the people to make the point. He was pointing out, because in fact, that was one of the things when Huck sees that Jim bleeds, and he's like, "Well, your blood is red, the same as mine." After Jim had been basically treated as nothing but an object for the whole thing. That's the whole point of the story. That, you know, something I put on my Facebook page the other day. I said that the people that yell about cancel culture, one thing they say a lot is like, well, you couldn't have a show like Archie Bunker today, which one is not true. We actually had an Archie Bunker show a few years ago. But secondly, the ones that do this miss the point.
Blazing Saddles.
They idolize. See, the problem is that there are people who idolize Archie Bunker, not understanding what Archie Bunker represents. Archie Bunker was every man, and he was pointing out that every man has biases and there's bigotry. There's still you're a human, but he's a proxy for the audience. And the point about it is that Archie never prevails in his bigotry. He's constantly torn back, and he's called a bigot to his face. Also on the show, they also call out would-be white allies who sometimes are paternalistic. There's a great episode. Some friend of mine commented about it. There's a great episode where these two black guys break into the house, and so Archie goes on his rant, and then Mike defends the robbers, and then the black one of the guys is like, "Oh, we have here a liberal," and basically he's like, "Well, he's like, Archie, you don't understand what they lived, you know, what they go through," and the guy says, "We neither do you," and he's like, "Oh, well, I've read stuff," and that's when he's, "Oh, well, you're a liberal, so you haven't actually lived it. You're just defending people, and you know nothing about them either." So that show to me is one of my favorite shows of all time. But the whole thing is that Archie was as woke as you could possibly get, because never ever did Archie ever prevail in his bigotry. He was always turned back. He was always ridiculed for it. He was always told he was wrong. And Archie changed over time, and he grew. So that's the difference of the people that pine that we couldn't have Archie Bunker today, is that they completely missed the whole idea that we shouldn't need Archie Bunker 45 years on. We should have be past that now, and we're not.
So like I mentioned on that thread you're talking about, and I had said to you, was the failing of Archie Bunker was he was supposed to be a lovable bigot. Far too much of the audience just saw him as lovable.
Right.
And that a lot of the audience didn't take it that next step that was crucial for the show to have been.
I mean, that's the thing.
They want the audience,
the lovable rapist.
but they want the audience to identify with him. They want the audience to see how what he's doing and how he thinks is wrong.
See him in themselves, maybe.
Right, and then learn and grow from it. The problem is a lot of people didn't go that far. They just said, "I like Archie."
That's right. Archie grew and they didn't.
Don't they overestimate people?
Because you figure by the end of the series, Archie has a partnership with a Jewish guy. He raises his niece as a Jew. He's got black friends, and he actually cares about them. And he by the end of the series, he's not really all that bigoted anymore. And basically it shows, like, you know, any time change is hard. And so Archie struggles, but he does change over time. And that's the thing to me, that probably the saddest part is, again, these people that pine for Archie Bunker, that they didn't grow with Archie. They didn't learn the lesson that he learned.
I personally know very little about the Archie Bunker show. I don't think I ever actually watched it.
So, all right, I'm just going to say it one more time. Blazing Saddles, go.
Oh, great movie.
Well, so I want to play devil's advocate a little bit.
Could you make it today?
No.
Could you make it today? Probably not, but we don't need to. We have it already. I mean, there's a lot of things from way back.
Okay, so here's the thing, though, that it's kind of important, because the superficial, the banter that that friends can have, different races. Is there not any kind of bonding or anything that can come from what others might perceive as edgy, right?
Well,
I tell you what, I've had some black friends over the years, and we've said some pretty edgy shit to each other.
Right, but here, if you look in Blazing Saddles, does anybody call Cleavon Little's character a nigger in jest or in friendship? No, not a one, not one. So that doesn't go with what you're talking about. There's actually a better example, and Asian movies that are made today is there are movies that are made with like Method Man and stuff like that, where the word gets tossed around. And where it is used in a different context, and no one complains about that use at all. No black people anyway. Maybe some white people.
Right? Yeah, some white people do.
Well, but yeah, usually the white people I hear complaining about it, well, how come they get to say it and I don't get to say it? And like, because we're gonna kick your ass if you do. That's why. Fuck you. You shouldn't want to say it.
Yeah.
Any context, look, if you're in a bunch of guys and that's how they address, they want to be addressed by you, I don't give a fuck. That doesn't nothing to do with me. But what I get irritated of, it's like when people go there's words that I can't, or that I shouldn't say. I can say whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. There are words that I shouldn't say. Hell, I won't, even though I'm part Ashkenazi, I won't use any Jewish slurs because I don't feel I have license to them, even though that's part of my heritage. Because
wait, could you rewind there? Even though I'm Ashkenazi, I don't use Jewish slurs?
Correct.
Is that like a staple of what Ashkenazis do? They use Jewish slurs?
Well, actually, if you hang out with enough Jews use Jewish slurs a bit.
I don't know that.
All groups do. All groups use slurs directed at them as a group with each other.
Yep. And I've heard Italians do the same thing. And again, I'm not going to repeat the words, but my friend Pete,
Wops.
He calls himself that all the time. But I would never dare to do that.
That's mostly what I am.
I'm not Italian, so I wouldn't dare use that because I don't have license to that word.
Is Italian a race?
Well, actually, you used to think of it. We just think of Asiatic and African and Caucasian, but way back, that would have been considered a race.
Yeah, so that's the whole story of it, right? So my people, the oppressed Italians, when they came over on the boat, because I'm third generation, I suppose.
Yeah.
It was I mean, you see it in documentaries. I guess they weren't classified as like regular white people.
Right. That's right.
So.
What in the hell is regular white person? That's like all of Europe.
You stop oppressing me. You are.
Well, that's actually again
colonizer.
My friend.
So
I like being in this out group. I hate like you. That's right, sister. Shut up. Let people of color talk.
I've got one nerve. Just careful how you work on it. I mean, I'm just trying to say. So basically, what you're just saying is like it's like the Finland, Norway. That's what actual white people are, and everybody else. So doesn't that technically make me the minority?
You are the most Casper white chick I've seen in a while.
Because I don't like to go in the sun, and I like my really pale goth skin. Okay, thanks.
But
I actually thought that when Joe comes to Colorado, we could maybe go to a good, authentic Mexican restaurant, because we have a bunch of them here, and we can see how many people in the restaurant try to address Joe as though he would be speaking Spanish.
Many people will. I can guarantee that. In Puerto Rico, people thought I was Puerto Rican.
That's another thing I get confused about. Are Puerto Ricans not white for the most part? Because that's a multicultural sort of like that's part of the island. That's part of the colonization. That's the whole thing, right? Yeah. Spaniards and I don't. It's complicated.
Basically,
who is white? Who is white?
Well, I don't know. Sister Danger.
Except for Sister Danger.
A lot of Hispanics are not considered white by the rest of white society because
So that's kind of confusing because
white women have Gucci boots. I want Gucci boots, not because I like Gucci, but you know how much I could probably sell those on eBay for and then buy something I actually like?
They don't
Can
have
I pick
Gucci
up my
boots. They have
white woman
Uggs
boots?
and a pumpkin spice latte.
Fuck yeah,
what they-
I'll drink that. Actually, I'll take
So,
that.
but yeah, because Puerto Ricans are a mixture of their Spaniards and there's the Taino Indians and there's Africans. So yeah, they're a very mixed people. So that's why there's a lot of bigotry in this country against Hispanics because they're not viewed as white by the greater white society. Greater meaning larger, not better.
but like, who is the white?
Sister Danger.
No, I mean
she's like
outside
white
of Sister
Jackson
Danger.
white.
Like, is it the Brits? Is it the Scots?
It's the
is
Brits.
it the Germans? Is it
European.
which ones are the right white ones?
European.
There can only be one white. Which one's the right white?
Well,
European.
I mean, technically speaking, if you think about where Caucasian means is the people who originated in the Caucasus Mountains. So that would include like Turks and Kurds and northern Iranians and
then they're not very white.
I didn't actually know that was a thing, Caucasus Mountains.
Yeah.
My favorite kind of Asians.
you know.
Caucasian.
Oh my God, no, you are fired for saying that. That's terrible. Goodness, my favorite kind of Asians are the Monty Python sort.
I saw this Indian dude, and he had, it was the maroon Redskins logo. It was swapped out with Caucasians, and they had this sideways thing of a white dude. I know it's supposed to make a point, but I was just like, I'd go for it. I'd fuck.
Well, right, because there's not the context. That's the whole thing. There's a lot of things. It's like, well, why is anything offensive? I mean, you can make up a sound, and that could be, depending on the context.
I don't know. I think some of the reverence gets misinterpreted as offensive, though. Like,
So
I don't know.
I see the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, they didn't have to make a parody. It exists. It's the Minnesota Vikings logo. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's true. That is true. Now to think about it.
Well, the reason why is because we didn't have an organized campaign of denigrating and slaughtering large numbers of Scandinavians in this country.
So Sister Danger can pull up the mascot for my favorite team, the Steelers. It's Steely McBean.
I could.
Steely McBean. I know you're curious.
Oh, you want me to pull up your mascot? Like for real?
Yeah.
Steely McBean, like a sunbeam?
Ridiculous how we get away with Steely McBean, and nobody said anything about hate against Irishmen.
Well, because it was Irish Jews that came up with the logo.
Maybe. Well, nobody says anything about Bozo the Clown being basically a parody of Irish people drinking so much that their noses got bloodshot with rosacea, and and being poor looking, dressing in hobo clothes.
That's pretty crap. I think that's bad.
Yeah.
And
clowns are parodies of Irish people. Sister Danger.
See, I don't know about that because I think clowns predate that.
Jesters, maybe, but like when you think of like Bozo the Clown and his hair pattern, I'm like, what the hell is this?
Most ancient clowns were found in the 5th dynasty of Egypt around 2400 BC.
Clowns?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and the white-faced clown goes back. I think that's apocryphal.
Okay. There's Steely McBeam right there. Come on. I hurt when I see that.
What's wrong with it? Why does it make you hurt?
Pittsburgh?
It's like a caricature of white people.
What?
No, he's supposed to look like an iron worker.
That's what I'm like. Isn't he holding a steel beam? That's why
Did you
his name
see
is.
how high up his pants are?
Isn't he wearing
like
coveralls? He's wearing coveralls. Coveralls
Yeah.
literally come up to here.
I will say I am offended by that picture, though.
Thank you.
I think it looks ridiculous, but you know.
I mean,
I think
with the dog thing.
I think everything of the sort should be banned.
I don't have.
You're full of crap. You are being sarcastic, Vegas.
But that's
gotta be.
I have zero problem if someone says, "Hey, I think that's I have no. I'm not invested in it. Hell, if someone came up with a good reason why Mr. Met should be banned, that's cool. I don't give a fuck. I don't need Mr. Met. I'm a Mets. I don't need Mr. Met.
The oppressors of Pittsburgh have been oppressing us Clevelanders for my entire life, especially in football. They're run by a rapist, and
I'm against rape.
That's right.
Well, see, I didn't have to hesitate.
And that's why Mr. Splainer is pro-rape, because he celebrates the organization run by this person.
I'm just saying that was
not
settled out of court, and it's the Ravens that have a murderer.
That is true. Also evil. We should ban them both. I agree.
Sports ball. Okay.
Oh, so many things.
Is that the topic we're on to now? Sports ball?
Sports ball fever. Catch it.
Well, I mean, it's sort of hard to say because it was sort of like sports ball and who has the most criminal owners in their sports ball teams, right? We got a murderer. We've got a rapist.
That might be my owner. That might be Cleveland's owner.
Well,
Maybe.
actually, speaking of sports and rape, one of the things that is interesting that is a serious problem, not just rape, but sexual assault, sexual harassment, and all that. There's a player. Well, he's a coach. He's now on the coach for the Indians. He used to be a Mets coach, and even before he was with the Mets, apparently he had a history of harassing, female employees and reporters and so forth. And it was all swept under the rug. And now it's coming out. And now, as women are coming forward, it hasn't blown up into a bigger thing yet. But there's zero chance that it won't. Because I have no doubt that this is a rampant problem within the sport. It's not just a couple guys. Because, again, those couple guys wouldn't get away with that shit if there wasn't a couple more guys and a lot more guys that were at least okay with it, if not doing it themselves.
Going through the Bill Cosby routine, right?
Oh, yeah. Well,
the Andrew Cuomo routine.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Well, the same thing with who was the coach? What college? There was the coach was like molesting the players.
Oh, you're talking about what was that?
Joe Paterno.
Was it Penn?
Might have been, yeah. And how like Joe Paterno, maybe he wasn't doing it, but he knew about it, and they let it go.
Yeah, there's a whole fallout on that thing. I just forgot about that completely. Yeah.
And there's still people to this day like, oh, but Joe, he helped us win. I'm like, yeah, but they were like raping dudes. Like, what the fuck? What's wrong with you?
Right. Shh. He helped us win.
It's like the Hollywood thing with what's his face and all the who was the big guy in Hollywood? The director that was abusing Weinstein.
Weinstein.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a little
Harvey
Weinstein.
Kind of a creeper sounding name, isn't it? No offense to any Harveys out there. Just saying, unfortunate.
So the thing about that is that shouldn't have been happening for as long as it was happening.
Right. Oh yeah, it happened for decades.
And openly. And
it's just like I said about police. It's never just one or two people. It's always a network of people who they're either doing it or they're enabling it. And so we don't always hold them all accountable.
So the uncomfortable thing, right? Conservative me says the girls that enabled that, like post getting sexually harassed, that went on to bigger and better things, they're culpable. I'm sorry, but they are. Straight up. I've seen the whole seen the whole thing where it's like you don't shame or whatever, but I'm like, well, how the fuck are you supposed to do anything?
Right.
Like,
well, Well, and to your point, there's it's like good reason to point out that I agree with you, and you think about it, people who are molesters very often were molested themselves, so they're victim and perpetrator, but it doesn't stop us usually from holding them accountable, because it's like, well, you still did wrong. There may have been reasons why you became the person you are, but we're still going to hold you accountable for what you did.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, if you I mean, I guess if you're being physically threatened, but yeah, if you just turned the other cheek because you got bennies for it,
It's part of the deal. It's part of the deal. Look away. It happened to you. I'm better off. Don't care.
So what you're saying is that if somebody knows about a crime or that something happened and they just don't say anything, or if they had a crime happen to them by somebody. So let's say Rob does something to me that is a crime, and then I find out later, like I go my own way, I find out later that Rob did a similar crime to a totally unknown person, that I am obligated to come forth and tell about the crime Rob did to me, or I'm otherwise culpable in enabling a situation that allows Rob to.
No, that's not what I'm saying. It's not the same thing. There's a difference between you being in Harvey Weinstein's presence to begin with because of this reputation, going through it, and then walking out the other side of it without actually making it stop.
So in other words, it was like Rob did something to you but you got paid a lot of money, or you got a promotion because of it. And then you knew it was happening to other people, but because you benefited by what he was doing, you kept your silence because it benefited you. You gained something out of your silence.
Right. And the only reason that Rob did it to you to begin with is because you knew he did it to other people. So you were trying to make it happen in some respect too, which wasn't the case for all of them, surely, but for some of them, I think it was.
It might have been. That might be a little bit of a stretch too, though. But the thing is if they've been victimized and was rewarded for it, they were still victimized. And by coming forward now, what they're doing is they're putting themselves on the line to be victimized again. And if you truly believe that what happened to you was wrong, and you know it'll happen to someone else if you don't act, I think you have a moral obligation to do so, even though you'll be putting yourself on the line. Let us not forget, though, that they're still putting themselves on the line if they do.
But no one's saying they got to out themselves in front of cameras. Just go to the cops, at least. How many?
Yeah, the super trustworthy cops that we think should all be fired.
Better than nothing.
To say that you have a moral obligation, though, to out yourself and try to stop the thing, I don't know that I really agree with that. You don't have a. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't think that anybody has a moral obligation to hold someone else's life higher than their own personal survival.
You don't think that there's a moral obligation to help stop other people from being victimized in the way you might have been?
I think that it is not black and white, and that there is a scale, and it depends on what that moral obligation is being compared to. Yes. So yes, sometimes maybe, and no, sometimes maybe.
I don't think anyone's suggesting it should be a law, but morally.
Trying to save you at the expense of my entire life, in which case the answer is no. But do I have the ability, the power, and the position to be able to try to help you out?
So
the answer is yes.
So you wouldn't run into a burning building for a loved one?
I have, but okay.
No, but see, actually, something you said though is an important distinction though. You
obligated,
right? But the thing about what you said is about what you're right. Basically, you're defending your own life. I agree with you. If you're doing it, if you're not saying anything because you're of your own personal defense, I totally agree with you. However, if you're not doing it because you got paid off, because you got promoted, because you got some benefit, you are now an accomplice.
Yeah, I agree. That is definitely different, and I agree with that. Yeah. That is not at all what I'm arguing.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know how many of those women were paid off as like accomplices, though. I mean, they were awarded jobs that they wanted, that they were victimized to get. They didn't necessarily know going in that they were going to be victimized in order to get a job. Do you know what I mean? It was more like if somebody, if you go on a job interview, and the person hiring says, you have to do this, otherwise you're not going to get the job. I think that's slightly different.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's we wouldn't argue that that's the same thing. I'm arguing that it appears that over that period of time, with that knowledge, that open of a secret, that some of them are culpable.
And actually, what's her name? Oh, fuck. I could picture. She was on the one with the witches, with the three witches.
The one that has Bette Midler with the crazy hair.
No.
The Charmed show.
Charmed. So yeah, the woman who was on Charmed, who was one of the people, and she was like a big face of that whole, get Harvey Weinstein. There actually have been people who have come out and said, hey, well, wait a minute, you got promotions. You didn't just get a job or save your job. You got promoted because you went along with this, because it didn't happen just one time. So you became an accomplice over time, and some people are trying to hold her accountable.
And Seth, what's his name, obviously wasn't a victim, but what really set this thing in motion, God, what is his last name? The guy that created Family Guy and American Dad.
Seth
MacFarlane. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so he kind of is the one that got the ball rolling on
Rose McGowan. Rose McGowan,
yeah. Yeah.
I'm listening.
No, that's just it. Like it's he was like the only guy that stood in front of that kind of crowd at that kind of public venue and did what he did.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
he was also a Rush Limbaugh fan, by the way. Just so you know.
Oh god. Well, it's just like with Hannibal Buress and Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Again, well, that's the thing too. Think about it with Bill Cosby. Like, people knew about this for 50 years. Lots of people knew about Bill Cosby for 50 years and nothing. And
I honestly did not.
Well, no, but
people
we're not
in the industry.
People in the industry knew about it.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of weird. The Bill Cosby thing is just like the Dr. Seuss thing. I think I didn't want to look at that either. It was probably why. Like, I didn't want to think that was possible.
Yeah, it's hard. Well, that's why they always say, don't meet your heroes, right? Because
yeah.
What did I say last week about having heroes? Why it's not a good thing? Because then it makes you resistant to the bad shit that you're going to hear about.
Yeah, but I'm still going to. I found those books on eBay. The whole set for $600.
Oh, I found one for more expensive than that. I found one for the whole set for I don't know, in the thousands. And I was like, what in the...
I only count the price if somebody's bid on it. If they're asking $1 million and nobody's bid on it yet,
who cares?
Not real. You're about to pay $600 for 6 Dr. Seuss books.
Well, the thing that I find just funny about it is it's this whole, again, it's knee-jerk reaction. It's just like when we banned the manufacture, or largely banned the manufacture of incandescent bulbs. So right-wingers ran out and bought up the huge swaths of them, like we were canceling light. I mean,
I think
it was ridiculous. And there's nothing good about incandescent bulbs. They're hot. They waste energy. They break easy. They don't last very long. So
we do have a problem.
Well, I think, though, that the question that was really being asked earlier when this topic came up, and somebody mentioned it in the comments. I'm sorry, I can't remember if it was Deep Ashtray or the Green Machine or whatever. But I think the real question, though, is how can you advocate for the banning of that and then also be free speech, right? How can you advocate for the banning of Dr. Seuss, but not Uncle Tom's Cabin, but not Huckleberry Finn?
They decided not to publish that anymore because they made an editorial decision.
Well, we don't know what caused that editorial decision to happen, though.
Yeah, we do, actually. We do. They put out a statement. I mean, we do. They said that they didn't want that to continue to basically to stain his legacy.
Right. And again, even if it was pressure, okay, that's the free market. But again, the banning only matters is only a thing if the government does it. I mean, so if I put out something and then I decide to withdraw my works, that's my business.
I would otherwise agree with that if I did not think that the government was the corporations of the United States of America.
How do you feel about gay wedding cakes?
What's that?
Gay wedding cakes? You know?
Well, yeah, and the Supreme Court ruled in their favor. So there you go.
So, yeah, okay, but like, how do you feel about it?
I disagree with this.
I would not bring my business to that business. Well, again, that's my
Why not?
Because I don't like their politics.
So you can recognize that it's kind of shitty.
Oh yeah, not making cakes for gay people is
so it's not nothing, right? So like the censorship, like with okay, so
but if I choose not to buy a cake from them, I'm not censoring them.
Okay,
I'm not.
I know.
If I never bought anything from Rush Limbaugh. Was I censoring Rush Limbaugh?
No, but I'm not. But the argument isn't that you're being shitty. I'm talking about, was it shitty for the cake maker to not make somebody a cake?
Sure, absolutely. I agree.
Okay.
It's just a stupid policy.
I don't even think shitty enters into it. I think that if you're selling a thing to the public in the public domain, then you're selling all the things to all the people that can buy them. And that's it. Like,
well, here's the thing, though. I wouldn't want to have to make a Nazi cake.
So you wouldn't want to have to make a Nazi cake, but
So
that's different, right? So like, there's difference between baking a cake, right? Like, if the gay people walked in and they said, "No, bake me a cake in the shape of a fucking purple dildo," that is not the same thing as baking a cake for gay people, right?
Agreed.
So.
Well, it's also not the same thing as using your business as a platform to spread your personal opinion, which I think is also a thing.
I can tell you this, though. I'm like, with AWS especially, like I put Apple and Google in a separate cart, like for the Parler thing, but AWS especially, what they did, I don't know, man. It does, like, I'm not saying that the government necessarily has to get involved with it, but people at least ought to recognize that this is a real shit thing to do. The extent that what we all kind of levied on these proprietary services, this is not a good move. It's really not.
Vegas, here's something I want to make a distinction. Okay, there's a difference between not selling to me because I'm black, not to sell me a cake or even a wedding cake because I'm black. But if it's something about what I put on the cake, you could say, no, I'm not going to put that on the cake.
Yeah.
So and look, I didn't agree. I didn't agree with any of those places. I thought they were shitty and bigoted, and I'm like, yeah, fuck you.
With Parler?
So
no, with the case.
Why hasn't Parler found a different web host?
So they're in the midst of some weird ass shit. Their CEO kind of went away. There's a whole lot of things behind it, but the problem with it
went
is
on the Tucker Carlson show.
They've kind of forced people to go more like right wing, and
see, I used to get insider trading tips on Telegram, and now it's just nothing but ex-Parler people, and I don't like it.
So I actually don't know how to use Telegram. I haven't taken the time to sit around and figure out how it actually works. It seems to be like everybody has, yeah, but there's no like central area that I like. It seems to be like you have to go on the internet, find the person you want to follow, add them, and then you like go to their area. But there's no like central, like in Gab or Facebook or Parler, there was like a central coalescing area to where, it just kind of, I don't know. I don't get Telegram.
Well, here's one thing. I address what you said about them making more right wing. I mean, basically, what we're I know you don't mean to say this, but the upshot of what you're saying is basically we have to kowtow to the right wing because no matter any time that they don't like something, then they're going to become even more shitty than they already were.
No. It's this in retrospect. I'm saying if you consider Parler to be something worthy of allowing AWS to take those kind of moves, Like, well, what the fuck is like this is why the whole like why cancel culture and all this stuff is referenced, because it's very difficult from the right to understand, okay, like where the lines are. If Parler really represents too much, then everything is too much, you know?
Well, here's what I would say, based on people I know who tried to go on Parler, people on the left who tried to go on Parler, just out of curiosity. They build it as always this big free speech platform where we're not gonna be. That was bullshit. Yeah, they got banned. It's bullshit. So this idea that they weren't going to cancel people was horseshit. They wanted to and look, I don't have a problem with right-wing people having a right-wing home. They can go there, and this way I don't have to be with them. But the thing is though, is that they don't, they don't have to like make it, have somebody else host, make a new host, buy some T6 lines and set some shit up.
We're talking about something altogether different, like the manner of centralized DNS authorities. We're talking about payment processors. You're talking about the cloud in general, the infrastructure. You're talking about things that make these services work, or not just the server and the rack at a colo place or running out of your garage. You're levying very intricate proprietary mechanisms that we've all worked to kind of build up through Amazon and the other cloud services, without any expectation going into it that this kind of thing was going to happen. And I will say this, to sow distrust like that doesn't just affect the right wing. It affects anybody looking at that like, okay, if they can do this kind of thing on a whim, or they're willing to, am I going to use these services in this way, or am I going to do something different? And I can tell you, I think it's having an effect more than people probably realize.
Well, Jeff Bezos isn't the richest man in the world anymore.
Well,
he's still in like the top
he's
three.
rich enough. He's rich enough, but that kind of thing, that kind of trust issue is a big deal when it comes to that stuff. It's not a game.
Well, here's my thing. I'm always going to say, and I've probably said this before, and I'll say this a billion times again. We've got the whole thing about cancel culture, because I don't think it actually exists, or at least it's nothing new. Bill, I'd love to meet Bill Maher in person and remind him, because he's always railing about cancel culture and he blames the left. It wasn't left-wing people that got Bill fired off of ABC. He got canceled off of ABC, and it wasn't by leftists; it was by people on the right.
Okay, so you would claim CNN is not left-wing, probably.
I would say that they probably the people on there lean a bit left.
A little. So, do you think what's the bald-headed guy? The new calling for Fox News to get canceled, or you don't see this as currently being an overwhelmingly left-wing thing.
Fox News, OAN, and the other.
It's not a thing.
Basically told a bunch of people that the government was stolen, and they should basically do something about it. We're not even in the same ballpark, dude.
Okay. Does Carano, just like in the last couple of weeks, not kind of exemplify something happening?
No,
at all.
It's consequences. It's not cancel.
Consequences of what?
Of anti-Semitism.
Show me.
Sure. What did she say? She compared what the right wing is going to people in the Holocaust. Seriously? That's okay?
Yeah. Well, we'd have to open that up together.
But
what I read was not anti-Semitic.
I am going to look it up right now. You guys talk amongst yourselves. I'll find it.
So here's the thing. I mean, basically, I don't give a fuck about her or anybody in the media. Because here's the thing. What about the Dixie Chicks? What about the right wing, when they said they were embarrassed to be from Texas because George W. Bush was from Texas? The right wing went batshit, and then they got kicked off. They destroyed them and took them off all their platforms. And you know,
Okay.
you know,
So it is a thing.
Is
It's
that
a thing when the right wing does it?
no, that's my whole point. Is no one on the left is calling that cancel culture, and certainly no one on the right's calling that cancel culture. But it sounds like the same thing.
It does sound like the same thing. I would prefer to not have that anywhere.
No, but my point thing is that I hear very few people, hardly anybody, maybe really nobody in the right wing going, "Gee, what happened to those?"
By the way, the Dixie Chicks were right. So there you go.
Well, they were. So, but that's the thing. But I hear very few people on the right. You're the only person actually on the right that I've ever heard say that what happened to them was a bad thing. So at least you're consistent. But the same people that are bitching now that, oh, gee, you know, Carano lost her job, or this person or that person, were the same people burning their Nikes, you know, burning their Dixie Chick albums and all this other crap.
Dude, I love they had to buy the Nikes to burn them.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think that what happened to Kaepernick should have happened. I don't think that what happened to Carano should have happened. I don't think that what happened to the Dixie Chicks should have happened. I think there's a line, and the line is there. Like when you're gonna tank somebody's career, we might be going a little too far, and I see a lot of it. I see most of it going from the left to the right at the moment.
Even though I disagree with you to a point, I applaud you for at least being consistent.
I don't see it as an outside force that tanked Gina Carano's career. It was the production company that no longer wanted to be associated with her.
Oh, come on.
Because
it's clearly the social pressure and the way it works. Just wait, Kaepernick.
No.
But the reason they don't want to be associated is what is the nature of the question. Is not the reason they don't want to be associated with her because cancel culture has kicked in. They've complained enough, and therefore she's been canceled by her company.
It wasn't social pressure. It's financial pressure. It's the same reason why Don Imus got fired. Don Imus got fired weeks later, not because anyone that ABC or NBC, whatever the fuck he worked for,
Carano was like an overwhelmingly popular character.
You know, he said he's a nappy-headed host. He got fired because advertisers pulled out, and it cost them money.
Okay.
She wasn't. Oh, I don't know how overwhelmingly popular she was. I watched Mandalorian.
She was like she was for the left, everything that emulates a feminist icon, and for the right, she was a conservative. Everybody loved her.
I don't know.
I watched
don't know about that. I don't know about that.
And I'm not saying she was a tremendous actor. She didn't say a lot of words, but she had a great aesthetic. I will say that.
So she looked.
She looked pretty. I mean, she was cool looking. But anyway, look, for us, it's pretty cut and dry. They were looking for any kind of excuse to get rid of her. It seems to be because she was a conservative.
Okay, so here are some of the comments I found. I'm going to put them up on screen.
Canceled. I think that there's still a place for her, especially the.
Apparently, it's the Daily Wire, by the way.
Okay,
yeah, she could go back to being in action movies with all of the different stars that were in the same action movies that are all part of the Republican caucus of Hollywood. You know, I don't see any of them turning her down for a role.
These aren't trolls. These are people trying to educate you so you can get on the right side of history. In my experience, screaming at someone that they are racist when they are indeed not a racist, and any post and or research you do will show these exact facts. I'm sorry, these people aren't educators. They're cowards and bullies. Yeah, that's not.
No, I know that one.
There's more. Oh, hold on. Let's see. So I found 3 different ones, and I had a really hard time finding. So maybe it's been taken down, like her post about the comparing Jews to Republicans, but I found somebody quoting it. So hold on. So this one. Also, this relates to the transphobe stuff. They're mad because I won't put pronouns in my bio to show my support for trans lives. After months of harassing me in every way, I decided to put 3 very controversial words in my bio. Beep, bop, boop. I'm not against trans lives at all. They need to find less abusive representation. And I don't think trans people would like all of you trying to force a woman to put something in her bio through harassment and name calling every day for months. Such as
literally nothing wrong about this.
bitch, weirdo, I hope you die. I hope you lose your career. You're fat and ugly. Wow. And here I'm over here going, grammar Gestapo, like that's not how you spell your, but whatever. I can't help it. I just I hate it when I do that, and I go back and correct my typos. But
there's nothing here. There's nothing wrong with this.
And then
she doesn't like the Z, Zer, and all the pronoun usage in people's bios. Think it's stupid. Doesn't matter.
And then this is the one that I found that is talking about the Jew thing, because I couldn't find that exactly. So this, not without some kind of an extensive search. So please bear with me. Is this right? No, this isn't right. God damn it.
Ultimately, I don't give a fuck about Gina Carano. I really don't. I don't give a fuck about any.
How about this? Because history is edited, most people today don't realize that to get to the point where Nazi soldiers could easily round up thousands of Jews, the government first made their own neighbors hate them simply for being Jews. How is that any different from hating someone for their political views?
Sister, I put it in our private chat.
Oh, okay. I will pull it up and look at that.
Oh, Mr. Splainer there. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Apparently I need that, though. Where'd it go? There it is. Oh, because it's in your post, that's why. Okay. Yep.
Did you just say you?
So she basically compared being criticized as a conservative to Jews in Nazi Germany.
So I'm going to read it verbatim. Jews were beaten in the streets, not by Nazi soldiers, but by their neighbors.
Read it.
Oh, you did.
I just read it word for word.
How? Okay, I'm reading it. This is not anti-Semitic. It might be stupid, but it's not anti-Semitic. So.
What I think it is more than anything is I think that.
This is saying.
Can I finish?
The opposite. This is the opposite.
Can I finish? What I think that really we see happening here is that on the right there is an excessive there's an excessive use of Hitler Nazism for exampling everything. Like, we're going to give you an example and we're going to skip to some reference of Nazi Germany to example everything that we want to give an example for. And that has become associated with the right, with the alt-right, with incels, with MGTOW. It's become associated with all of those people that circle here. And therefore, when she comes out and says something like this, because it's such a powerful narrative in righty circles, whatever. I mean, at this point, I think I could say right, because if Tucker Carlson's talking about it on Fox, then I'm pretty sure we can just say right. But what I think is really happening is that now is becoming inseparable. So these kinds of comparisons, while you might look at them outside of any context and go, there is actually nothing wrong with this. It's not being anti-Semitic. When you consider that the source and the culture that it's coming from does show those bents, if you will, that she could be unawares, although it seems unlikely. But when you're in the midst of that, right? Like, and then you have the outside, and the left literally just perceives all of that as you only make these kinds of comments if you're immersed in this culture. That culture is anti-Semitic, racist, whatever. And that there's just like, whoop, these things are shortcuts to all.
Okay, well, without digging into it, this post says we need to stop demonizing each other. That's what this post says. That's all it says.
It goes way further than that. And it's the same thing. They also use the same rhetoric to compare what they're going through to slavery. And that's so to Amy's point is I
agree with that.
They do the same thing. They basically try to equate their grievance with the victims of the Holocaust and victims of battle slavery. And this happens a lot. And that's the irony of it, is the right complains about victim culture. There's no bigger victim culture than white conservatives in this country. I swear.
Well, what I'm saying is
when you
this
compare,
right here.
you compare petty grievances to
This
the
right here, like you're talking about, like this very crypto sort of manner in which it did. Look, without going too deep into it, because I don't know it. I'm looking at it. It might not be an apt comparison. It might be a little silly to compare what people are enduring right now to Jews in the Holocaust.
Okay,
obviously, but this
it,
is not anti-Semitic either.
I'll tell you this: whether or not it's anti-Semitic, I'll tell you. Maybe it isn't. But at the very least, it's massively insulting to Jews and to blacks when they do it to us. This idea. Let's compare petty grievances to like right. The destruction of a people.
That's a fair point, but I don't think that is the same thing.
So maybe not, but my whole point is again is like, okay, as far as is that rise to a point where you maybe you would lose a job for it? Yeah, if you compare trivial shit to again things that have to do with the destruction of a people, your judgment is so fucked up that I could see people saying, look, I don't want to associate with what you do.
Vegas, I think it's wild that you're rolling your eyes at that. I think that is the most fucked up thing I think I've seen in a long time. You're rolling
I'm rolling my eyes that she got fired over this. That's the most fucked up thing you've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Joe had just got finished saying that she's comparing getting eyes rolled at her to the destruction of a people.
What is Godwin's
law? People.
What is
it?
She's the one invoking.
But she's the one that invoked
Godwin's law? Are you going to sit here and pretend to me that we haven't likened shit on the internet to Hitler for fucking 20 years? That it isn't the most overused shit ever, and that this isn't just one more thing on top of this is the one. This is the one.
No. There's many.
This is it. This is the one that went too far.
Joe hit the wrong button or something.
He got mad.
I am sure. I don't think he got mad. He probably hit the wrong button. I would have gotten a text if he got mad.
Anyway,
there's a bunch of people. There's a bunch of people that have lost their jobs or something. Oh, he is mad. Or lost something. Yeah, I just got a message from him. She just happens to be one of the most notable recently. It's not like it's new. When you say stupid shit like that, a private company can say, "Yeah, we don't want to work with you. Bye-bye."
Okay. I looking at it literally, I think it's a step better than overt anti-Semitism because literally reading it, it's admitting that what happened to the Jews was bad and that it exists.
Right. That's the thing. It's right in there.
Those circles can't even admit that the Holocaust happened.
Oh, 2 points. You're acknowledging the Holocaust existed.
But I do agree that equating what happens to her as far as Twitter bullying from people trying to get her to use pronouns.
It's insulting and it's petty and it's ridiculous.
It's apples and oranges in an extreme sense. It's very stupid, but I don't think that's why they fired her. I think it's that she was political at all, and her role was becoming politicized outside of their ability to control the presentation of Cara Dune.
So what was who was the Mandalorian, the character? I gotta look up his tweet real quick.
I don't know.
He was the guy from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, he was. I
know who. And that read Shakespeare in Spanish. What's his name?
I'll have to look him up. Keep talking. I'll look him up. But he said something to the effect, you could like it to be the same thing. The point is, this seems to be a vehicle rather than the reason. Like a vehicle to fire her for whatever reason at all. It doesn't seem to be the reason she was fired. Because
you really have to take the rest of the article that she put up there. You have to take all the tweets together for a context for a reason to fire someone. But it really was that she was becoming a political
To
figure.
equate something trivial to something monstrous is to trivialize the monstrous. Okay, but like, okay,
I know Joe's
fair.
Or vice versa.
I'm just saying. I'm
But,
just saying. It seems to be going one direction. I'll pull up the tweet in a second. The guy that actually is the Mandalorian. Sorry, Joe. I didn't mean to offend you, buddy. But the guy that is the Mandalorian, he said some stupid shit a couple of years ago. But he is a left winger, and this is the perception. It's like
I wish Joe would stand for this, but
what's that?
in my life, I have known homophobic black people.
True.
Right? I came across them, and they were extremely not happy with gay people equating their strive for civil rights with the black civil rights movement. Extremely unhappy about that. And when I see people being extremely unhappy with her saying that she's being persecuted and it's like some other movement being persecuted, I get like I harken back to that era of like saying, why are you upset that they're trying to make this connection between your plight and this other plight? You know, I see like why are you upset that they're trying to say I'm hurting?
Here's the thing, though, between those examples,
Yeah.
the gay movement, the LGBT movement, and the Black civil rights movement, there are a lot of similarities. There are a lot of parallels. I mean, you know, because I've had this conversation with some people online, and they were just like, you know, saying how fucking ridiculous it was, blah blah, and they were like, you know, you guys weren't lynched. Yes, we were. Yes, we were. I mean, there's a place here in New Jersey where they used to play a game called Drag-a-Fag, where they would tie gay guys to the back of their car and drag them up Route 23.
So
I mean, it's
I
just
just
like, yeah, we were.
And I don't even agree with her comparison, but what she was trying to set out in what she said was, here is the reason why I think this is comparable. That she felt like she was being canceled, and that was somehow like Jewish people. It was a horrible.
It's not a good comparison, but to that point that it being not a good
She was
comparison,
trying to connect the two.
yeah. Click on the link that I
The
just
Pedro Pascal one.
Yeah.
motherofallnerds.com.
Okay,
Yeah.
hold on. Let me get to it.
And so I would understand the point if there was an even-handedness about this, but there doesn't seem to be an even-handedness. So there's a stupid one that you're going to think it's what it is. It's not the one I'm trying to draw out. Scroll down.
Okay. Well, let's see. Were Pedro Pascal's tweets just as bad as Gina Carano's? Fans say he should be fired after Holocaust comparisons. Okay.
Okay. So not this one, even though that's stupid, but right here. This
right
one.
here. Germany.
It's the comparison between the kids in cages, right, to the camps. Now, this is the same kind of thing that minimizes.
I disagree, and there's a reason. There's a
pretty
reason.
damn close.
I think it's way more in line than what Gina Carano said.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
it's much. This is an apt comparison.
Yeah.
We had constant concentration camps in the United States for children. Are you fucking kidding me? This is an absolutely justifiable. This is an absolutely justifiable. Seriously, you don't. Okay.
Well, if people
whatever,
don't believe,
you classify that
Wow.
we have on the border today is the same thing as concentration camps in Germany.
Let's see. There's a group of people where you don't want them part of the population that you keep concentrated in a camp. Yes.
I mean, and hold on. An analogous comparison doesn't mean exact on every fucking point. I mean, but the basically what Rob just said. Yes, we are keeping people in cages of a certain class of people, and they're suffering all kinds of things. Like,
unfucking believable that you cannot see the fucking absolutely apt comparison. Oh my fucking God. Are you even a human being? Whoa, holy shit.
In these two images, I see
Buddha out with Hitler.
In these two images, I see two separate oppressed people being penned in by a physical barrier, one's barbed wire, one's cages. Show me where Republicans are being penned in.
Are you for real, dude? Seriously? And then you're comparing this to that fucking psycho crying about trans people, eye rolling at her, and being mean on Twitter? Get the fuck out. Really? Come on.
Well, what I would tell
Please.
you is, I don't think that these kids were part of a roundup in a labor camp and on their way to a fucking death camp. I don't think that's the same thing.
Do you think
How
that
many were
everybody that
raped?
was in a concentration camp?
How many of those kids were drugged and kept in an area? A bunch of them. How many of them were raped by the people that were holding them? A bunch of them. How many
Separated
died?
parents.
Some of them did. Yeah. They would have been better off if we hadn't kidnapped them from their parents. Yeah. Bullshit, dude. Bullshit. Those kids weren't tortured. Those kids are scarred for the rest of their fucking lives. And America the Brave did that. Yeah, but yeah, no, there's no comparison. Get the fuck out. Give me a break.
One still seems a lot worse to me.
It may be worse, but that doesn't mean what? Just so yes, there's a big gulf between concentration camps and treating people right. Just because you don't fall all the way into concentration camp, I mean, 2 steps outside of that isn't treating people right. It's still treating, I mean, basically what you're saying is, well, it's not comparable because we didn't take those kids that are in cells and put them in gas chambers, therefore not like Nazi Germany at all, right? I mean, you could say the same thing about penning up Japanese by that logic,
Well,
right? No, you can't, because we weren't throwing them into gas chambers either here, but America was still rounding up Japanese people and throwing them into camps.
sure.
You know,
And that's horrific. And I'm not meaning to suggest that you couldn't even classify what's going on at the border as bad. I certainly don't think it's good.
well,
But
I mean,
I also don't know that it's the same. And anyway.
So I would say that if I were Disney, the company, I would try to get people locked into contracts if they're going to be part of a Disney production that's going to be millions upon billions of dollars. Just don't be politically active while you are acting for us, and have that as a writer in the contract. Like if you're not going to want people to be liberal or conservative, and you want to work for that big of a production where your mouth can get the entire show canceled by cancel culture, then they need to put writers in there saying, don't be drumming up using the platform that we have to then take it and then drum up political furor. It's hurting the business.
I want to know what you think is different. What do you think is so remarkably different in these two situations that this comparison, the Pedro Pascal comparison, is more like Gina Carano's tweet, and he should be fired for it. And
they're not completely dissimilar. I'm not saying they're the same thing. I'm saying that.
So if you agree that he should be fired in the same way that she was fired, what you are
saying, I'm saying
that
that
an example.
No, I'm saying that neither should have been fired. I think it's gone too far for this kind of thing.
So you agree that his post is actually a relative comparison, a good comparison?
No, I'm saying it would make sense if there was an outcry, or like in terms of it just seems that there is no even-handedness here. I'm not saying that what he said was worse. I'm saying that it's not nothing by comparison.
But
it's
if there's no outcry for it, couldn't that also mean that it's because his comparison is an apt comparison and her comparison was not? That it has nothing to do with he's on our side, so we're gonna turn our heads. It's that he said something that is in line with itself. And
okay. So the other post on that page likens Trump supporters to being Nazis. Actually, is that a fair comparison?
Some are.
Is that a fair comparison? Were we actually the brown shirts?
I
right?
actually think that there's a lot more that I kind of qualify that a little bit, because there were people that were Trump supporters, and then there were the MAGA hats. And the MAGA hats I might put into that category, maybe say that there is a lot more to be compared there, because they're still not giving it up, right? They're in it like it's a religion, like it's a cult. And I think there's a lot more comparison to be had there than with your average, I'm a Republican, so I just support Trump person, which I think are plenty of people, probably the most of people, but we always see the extreme in the media.
So while I appreciate how frustrating this can be, especially for Joe, to see this, I appreciate that you brought that out, because like before this show, I had no idea of that Pedro Pascal's side controversy, and I feel like maybe that more right leaning media might be, educating a completely different set of people with.
Right. So it feels like we're living in two different universes. Like there's things that you guys see that I don't see, and the tweets that he made that you guys don't see. And
I've never seen this before this.
And so the thing is, like,
the tweet itself doesn't bother me that it exists. I am bothered by the tweet, but only because it's showing that we have locked kids up in cages in concentration camps in the United States. So,
sure. The thing is, though, from the right wing, it takes a very cynical view that the separation of these kids is, I'm not saying it isn't harmful and it doesn't hurt, but that it's not for safety, okay, is because that's what it's for. It's for safety. It's for the safety of the kids that get exploited.
No, it's not. No, it's not. They said it wasn't. They said it was a deterrent, that they took kids from their families, knowingly took them out of their mother's arms as a deterrent. Fuck you. Dude, really? You're going to pull that bullshit when Jeff fucking Sessions said it publicly? Bullshit, dude. Bullshit.
What Vegas just said, what you just said, I find it kind of interesting, and it almost makes me want to say that next week, I don't know if Goth will be back, but when we pick our topics, if we do that next week, that maybe what we should do is Vegas find articles that are relevant to the topic from his sources, and some of us do that from our sources, and we compare them and see just how different the narratives are between the two. Because I think there might be something, I know there is, because that's how Facebook algorithms work, for example. The more that you click on something, the more it shows you things that, like what you clicked on. So if you are a right-wing person and the people around you are, you click on that stuff, you get more of it in your feed. And I wonder...
There's a bunch of truth to it. I mean, Mike exposed me to something that I didn't know before.
I didn't know about the Pedro Pascal thing either till you showed it to me.
So the big thing for me in the last probably week was there was a 60 Minutes interview with Dr. Fauci. And I never watched the whole thing, but I always watched the right-wing snippets of it. I wasn't going to sit down for an hour and watch it. But there was this point that right-wingers had no idea that when they're talking about, a mask isn't going to do anything, right? A mask is not going to, it's ineffective. It was like at the very start of the COVID lockdowns, or very early, like over a year ago. I had never seen the tail end of that particular segment where he said, what would he say, Mike? He said,
it can still help, but we need to concentrate on healthcare workers needing.
Completely devoid of all the media I consume. Gone, right? Completely gone. Was not there at all. And that's like, I know that that's not a big deal for you guys, but like for me, I like had a fucking connection. It was like living, I was very upset. Like, and I felt lied to.
It reshapes your narrative. It reshapes the whole.
Yeah, right. So
to change your viewpoint and opinion. That's basically a lie by omission.
So right, and I know Joe would like last week he was talking about with Mike Brown getting shot. Like his impression was it was like 50 feet away, and he was like got shot in the back running away. This is just not true. So
He got shot in the top of the head.
I can send you the autopsy report, but that's he could do that. Like that's not consequential to the argument at hand, though. It's just not. So I don't want to offend people. I'm not trying to.
What?
I hope we can continue to get along. I'm just saying that it does feel like there's it's not even handed at the moment.
Well, I think that you might understand, just like when being presented with something that completely goes against what you are thinking, that cognitive dissonance can cause. There's rage quits, but there's also just like big fuck yous that can happen.
Yeah,
if you're
yeah,
presented,
I'm not.
it completely doesn't line up with the way that you see reality.
It's true. I've had it happen to me a few times this year. Things I just didn't want to see or recognize. And there's probably some of this that maybe I'll change my mind on. Maybe not. Maybe you guys might change your mind on a thing here or there. But
well, it's 8:50 basically, and I think normally we end. So I was gonna say maybe give it like 10 minutes or whatever, and then call it. I also wanted to maybe say though, since it seemed important to some of our folks, does anybody object to me sharing the GoFundMe for the homesteading gal?
Needy homesteader, Heather.
Yeah, the needy homesteader, and with what happened to them. And I thought maybe it would just be kind of us to share that into our chat. For if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, hop over to the needy homesteader. Here, I think I may have actually saved a link for it.
Some of you, if you don't know who she is, some of you will remember her from Jack Luck 4, way back in the day.
I'm gonna
That
put
was
it in
her
our.
old. That was her old channel.
And let's see. And she had quite a big family tragedy. And so here's the link that you guys can watch to see what she said about that. I put it in the chat for you all. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy her GoFundMe as well. Well, it's not hers. It was actually started by, I don't know, maybe a fan or a family friend. I don't know who started it, but let's see.
I watched this video.
Geez. I freaking had terrible nightmares after the whole thing. I felt so bad for her and I don't even know who she is. Like, I was not familiar with her channel. Here's their GoFundMe. So for anybody that might know what that is or be interested, I just wanted to kind of give a little shout out to that, I guess. Really,
Yeah, I'll chip in on that.
She used to be she used to be pretty active and a big part of the skeptic community way back. So
yeah. Then she found baking bread.
then she started baking bread. Yeah.
And I guess doing a bunch of other things if she's a homesteader. I don't know.
Before it was trendy.
Well, I actually find that kind of stuff super cool, but then I also want to buy a big plot of land and go live on it for the rest of ever and make an event property out of it. So I'm
what?
An event property. So
I don't know what that is.
You know what events are, right? Things that people go to, like a wedding venue.
Oh.
I want to make a venue out of it, yes. But in that process, I want to own it and be responsible for its development on many different levels, which would include a lot of different homesteading things where you're building root cellars and having a garden and canning things and stuff like that. So
there's a place near me. Some guy bought it, but it used to be a camp. Now this guy bought it, and now he pretty much lives there and he does LARPing.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. Yeah. Basically, is make a big, massive, kind of a LARP LARP fantasy venue where you could do things like, you know, have Viking weddings and medieval dinners and stuff like that. So that's our goal. But I'm kind of into that whole prepping thing though, and I think that I feel safer as a human being, like a literal individual, knowing that if the world stopped one day, I would not just be like, oh no, and die like a white woman in Gucci boots, right? That I would be able
Uggs.
to, what?
Uggs.
If I was wearing Uggs, I probably deserve to die, but you know, I don't like Uggs. Those are the worst. I'm sorry. I know that that's probably a terrible thing for me to say, but yeah. But I feel better about those kinds of things though, because I don't feel like I'm at the mercy of everything around me. That in the worst case scenarios, I would have some basic survival skill and know-how. So I don't know. Maybe that's crazy. Whatevs.
I like those kind of events just because it's escapism that isn't spoiled.
Define spoiled?
Chris
Spoiled
and
by what?
I are going to go to the Renaissance Festival this summer, and then you know we're each in our own time. We're going to find that turkey leg, the giant turkey leg, and we're going to eat that turkey leg.
I was told once that turkey legs aren't actually turkeys, that they're actually pork and that's flavored like turkey.
Why are you trying to spoil? Why would you do that?
What? Why? Somebody said that.
Yes, but here's the problem is that I don't know if they were actually saying the truth or not, because sometimes I'm really bad at telling whether or not people are telling the truth. So if they say it and it sounds plausible and I'm not sure, I just sort of have to chalk it up in a category in my mind of this is what I heard and I don't actually know for sure one way or the other.
Then I will not tell you.
You won't. You won't tell me what. This is a problem with my upbringing. I mean,
I won't tell you if it's true or not. I will leave you unsure.
you please just leave me unsure. I think it's funny to say it to people, but in my own head, I don't actually know the truth of that statement. But I mean, my mom raised. So my mom lives in Maine, and when I first went to visit her, this is like personal story, right? But when I first went to visit her, like the first time ever I've been to Maine, and we're driving from Portland, Maine out to Camden, where she lived at the time. We go through this place, a town called Bath, Maine. And I was like, wow, I'm just like chatting. And I'm like, haha, Bath, Maine. That's so funny. Why would somebody name a town Bath, right? And my mom says, oh, well, that's because when they were back here settling the area, the first settlers in the area, they're like, there was a bunch of little townships everywhere. And this was the place where the public bathhouse was. And so it became known as Bath. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. And she's like, haha, you fool. Nuh-uh, you're so gullible. Like, it's called Bath because it's named after Bath, England. And I was like, but why would you do that to me? I mean, I believed you. It made sense. It was, I didn't know. And she's like, no. And yeah. So I have to be really careful because if I trust people or I don't think they have any reason to be deceiving me, right? That's not true of randos. Like, I distrust. But if you get a little bit of trust from me, then I'm like, oh, that thing you said, that seems pretty believable. So I have to always be like hyper questioning. Otherwise, I just believe everything.
So what you're saying is the contest is on, and we're to find the strangest thing to get you to believe.
Why? By the way, I just want to say that response right there, that's why I would do the turkey leg thing to you, right? That's why. Why would you do the turkey leg thing to me? Because you, right there, you're like, not only will I do it to you, I'll make a contest out of it for everybody on the show to do it to you too. I see the turkey leg and I one up you, the whole bird.
We might have done it already.
That's not funny.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
It's really pushing the envelope of the rules of the contest, though. 'cause
oh wait, and the
you're
audience.
not supposed to tell somebody that they're in that contest. But like, if it's in that gray area of they don't know for sure, I guess you're still within the bounds of the rules, huh?
I don't know. Things I'm bad at. Telling when people are lying and lying. So I'm only good at lying under certain circumstances. Like when I know that somebody will, oops, sorry, Vegas, that was me. I accidentally hit a button. Like, screw you. No, I'm kidding. But like if I know that somebody will find out the truth, like if it's your surprise birthday party, I can lie like the best of them because I know that like in 2 hours you're going to know. So it won't be a thing. But if that's not the case, I'm a terrible liar. So that's how my mom raised me. Never tell a lie. But then she was like, and here's the history of Bath. Is it any wonder? I don't know. What do you think about the idea, though, of like finding opposing viewpoints in news articles for topics?
I think we might be able to find some things that were where the communication broke down today, and then maybe revisit it because we're adult enough to do things like that. You know, this is exactly the place.
Exactly.
I don't know how to phrase some ideas that I think shouldn't really be that controversial, but tend to animate some folks. I don't take the same kind of offense, or maybe I just don't see it. You know, like Rob did with that same post. But anyway, it won't be easy. I don't think we have to visit certain things. Probably safer.
I agree that with Mike about this being the place for it. I mean, that's why I created it. But
I don't want it to get to a point to where folks are storming off. Like I really didn't.
Joe,
yeah,
he's done it. He's done it
Explain
before.
the Browns hat.
It'll happen again.
I did do that deliberately. I didn't even know you were a Pittsburgh fan, but anyway.
Oh well, now you know.
I can't even believe you justified that by saying he's a Browns fan. I mean,
No, he's saying that. I tried to. That I'm trying to offend people, obviously, with my. Although I don't like. I mean, we are clearly the oppressed in this relationship, Michael. I think.
Well, you know, her Raiders hat has this different connotation here in Colorado, right?
No.
Oh, like, well, I can tell you from experience that there's this thing called driving while Raider fan.
Driving while Raider fan.
Yeah.
What is that?
Police will pull over and harass people with Raiders bumper stickers here in Denver.
No way.
Yes.
Well, see that
Broncos,
is
right?
something I can get on board with.
What?
Actually.
What?
I mean, look at you. You're a
Oh
criminal.
shit! Your hat
with that
does
hat.
say Browns. Oh. I thought you were talking about Joe being the Browns fan, not Vegas. I'm sorry. I didn't read your hat this whole show. Whatever. I just saw that it was a football hat, and I was like, I have to get on board with the football thing.
I am one of the very rare Cleveland Browns fans, but I love my Browns.
I mean, I have to say that the thing I like about the Browns isn't their little mascot a brownie, like a fairy? It's
an elf.
Well,
that's one of them. It's like an unofficial.
So I feel obligated to be a little bit of a Browns fan because it's like my people, right? But
it's hard. If anything, it's hard to hate the Cleveland Browns. You know, it's
that's because
they haven't had a really good run. What's that?
They're at the bottom of the barrel for like ever.
Not anymore. Not right now. This is they're actually doing well.
What was the baseball team that won after like 100 years of
The
not
Red
win.
Sox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like being a Red Sox fan.
No, the Red Sox weren't actually bad. They just didn't win the World Series.
More like
The Browns were like bad, like really bad.
yeah. So the Browns are more like the Cubs, if you're looking for a
Yes.
baseball analogy.
Yeah, that's probably more apt, actually. Yeah.
I don't do sports ball, but I knew that. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
It's a total waste of time, and I love it. I do.
Well, it is 9:01, ladies and germs, and so I guess that means it's time for me to hit the big red button and end Yon broadcast. Well, we don't know if Goth at Funk will be back next week. If he is, he'll be running things, and if he isn't, so
Bye.
yeah, hit like and subscribe. Stay tuned. We'll see y'all later. Bye, everybody.